Good evening. Welcome to the November 17th meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Education. Superintendent, if you'll take the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Reed.
Here.
Mr. Hoover.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Short is absent. Mr. Hui.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a public comment before we go into closed session? No one in person? Anybody online? No one online. All right, then the board will be going into closed session to discuss student matters, specifically case number 2122-1S, employer-employee relations, conference with legal counsel regarding litigation, conference with real property negotiators, and personnel issues. We will be back at 6 p.m. sharp, and we stand at recess. All right, welcome back from recess to the November 17th meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Education. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. A broadcast and recording is being made at the direction of the board, and the broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. The meeting is being live streamed on the district's YouTube channel. Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board Policy 1313 promotes mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among employees, parents, and the public. We will treat staff, parents, and members of the public with respect and expect the same in return. If any member of the public uses obscenities or communicates in a demanding, loud, insulting, and/or demeaning manner, the board will calmly and politely admonish the person to communicate civilly. Public comments during board meetings are an important component of public engagement and transparency, and all written comments submitted to the board by 3 p.m. today have been read. Per the Brown Act, the board is not allowed to enter into a two-way discussion on any matter not on the agenda. The superintendent will call roll for the board to acknowledge receipt of the electronic comments submitted by 3 p.m. today as it pertains to today's board meeting. Superintendent, please call the roll.
Yes. Ms. Perez?
Here.
Ms. Srivastava?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Hoover?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Short?
Here.
Mr. Hui?
Here.
All are accounted for. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to agenda item 5, reporting out of closed session. Superintendent?
Yes, the board took action in closed session. The board unanimously voted to deny readmission of student case number 2122-1S following the term of their expulsion.
Thank you. All right, adoption of agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Clark, seconded by Mr. Short. Superintendent, take the roll.
Ms. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Srivastava?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Short?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to agenda item 7, special presentations. Superintendent?
Yes, tonight it is my honor and privilege to recognize one of our board members who is leaving the board as he is going on to new opportunities. And so at this point in time, we would like to share our gratitude and appreciation for Mr. Joshua Hoover, who's served on our school board from 2019 through 2022. We have a plaque to honor you and a few words of gratitude we'd like to share from each one of us. But our plaque says to you, we appreciate your years of dedication and commitment serving on the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Education. Thank you for empowering all students to thrive through educational excellence. So congratulations and thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
We'll take a picture afterwards, or, okay.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, anybody who wishes to make a comment?
I can, Mr. President.
All right, Mr. Clark?
Yes, Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for your service on the board. Appreciate working with you. I wish you nothing but the best moving forward. You've got a bright future ahead of you, and I look forward to just watching you grow and be the leader that you are. So appreciate everything that you've done.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, I would just also add, I sincerely appreciate all the help that you've provided me jumping onto this board. I love that we always know where you stand. You make that clear every meeting, and it's really important, to be able to speak your mind regardless of where anybody else in the room stands. Something I admire about you and have always admired on this board. So appreciate it. I know you'll do great things as you move on from here, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Okay. Likewise, I really appreciate you actually taking time out of your life to participate in the greatest system is the public education system. I think it's important that everybody does their civic duty in providing that. So I want to thank you for doing that, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover, for your time and commitment to the students.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Hoover. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, that leaves me. First of all, you look a lot younger in that picture.
It's been a long few years.
Gosh, it was 2018 that you and I ran for school board. And, the one thing, I didn't know you before that year, but, I'd say that election is at least a testament that opposing candidates can get along. We often chatted, I often chatted with your parents as I was dropping off literature at doors. I frequently see them around too. But it really, has been a true pleasure serving with you. The past 4 years, especially the last 2.5, we didn't realize what we were getting into in 2018 when that started. But honestly, I couldn't imagine, wanting to work with anybody else than you, getting us through these pandemic years. I really appreciate, working together, getting the schools back open. And your commitment to the students. Very much appreciate that. I will personally miss you, I guess, starting the next board meeting. But as our colleagues have indicated, you have a very bright future, although still undetermined, but it's a bright future nonetheless. I wish you all the best, and I expect to see really phenomenal things coming from you in the future. So
thanks, David. Means a lot.
Yeah,
appreciate it. I guess I have to say something now. Huh?
Well, let me say something first on behalf of myself and district administration and our district, and on behalf of 21,000 students and 2,400 staff members. We thank you for your service as one of our Board of Trustees and member of our governance team. I know it's a huge commitment to be on a school board, commitment for you, but also your family, and we thank you for that. And I also thank you for keeping students at the forefront of decisions that are made. And I appreciate how you were one that pushed on, certain issues to have us look at some of our topics from different lenses. And I think that's really healthy for a board to do too. So I want to thank you for the perspective that you've brought to the board. And then also helping us grow as a governance team, and wish you all the very best in what I know will be a bright future for you as well.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. This is, it's pretty crazy. I didn't really put anything together to say tonight. It just didn't really start hitting me until today. So you guys just made this a lot harder. But I can't imagine, serving with anyone else. It's been a real pleasure serving with all of you. These last few years have probably been the most challenging of any few years that you could serve on a school board. And, we've had our ups and downs, but I think that I just couldn't imagine anything different. I wouldn't change a thing. And really, really appreciate us just sticking together as a team through this. And despite our disagreements, and, it's just been an absolute pleasure, and I've learned a lot, and it's just been a blessing. So thank you for all the kind words, and I will really miss serving on this board. I won't be disappearing. I'll still be around, and I'll come share my thoughts from time to time, I'm sure. But I think this school district is in great hands with the people up here, and I look forward to what comes in the future. So thank you.
let's get a picture. Yeah.
Take a couple, so 1, 2, 3, look up at here. Very good. All right, thank you.
I picture in the lobby, I can probably, every time I walk in, I look at them like, oh, good God, what happened to him? All right. Let's see. Is that it, Superintendent?
Yes, thank you.
All right. That takes us to a public comment. Let's see. Is there, oh, actually, I have some. All right. All right, well, Julie, well, let me make sure they, counselors, education. Yeah, okay. All right, the first speaker is Julie Warner. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Board, Superintendent Clegan, and District team. My name is Julie Werner, and I'm here tonight representing the counselors of Folsom, Cordova. Our job, like so many others, is made up of many responsibilities, causing us to wear multiple hats. As a result, there can be confusion as to just what it is that we do and how we spend time with students. As a group, we decided it would be valuable to share with our school board on a regular basis just what it is that we're doing at any given point in the school year. To that end, I wanted to make you aware that over the next few months and throughout the school year, different counselors from different school sites will be coming to meetings and be giving you a thumbnail snapshot of what we have been working on. And in a bit, you'll hear from Nicole Estrada from Folsom High. But first, to start us off, I would like to share with you a little bit about who we are. There are 26 school counselors that work for Folsom Cordova. 10 of us work at the middle school level, and 15 of us at the high school level, and 1 at Innovations. Some of us have just began our time at Folsom Cordova, accepting positions as counselors this school year. Others of us have been working for Folsom Cordova as counselors for approaching 25 years. About half of us decided to be counselors after working in other fields, such as teaching and social work, whereas the other half of us have been counselors from the start. Depending on if we are at an alt-ed site, a middle school, or a comprehensive high school, we are assigned to as few as 200 students or to as many as 750. I'd like to finish my time with you with a few quotes from my colleagues when I asked them, why do you do this work? From Sutter Middle School, I chose school counseling because I am passionate about being an advocate for all students. My teenage years were very difficult, and I understand what it takes to be a compassionate person to help my students feel safe and to advocate for them. From Kinney High School, I chose counseling because I enjoy working with teenagers. After having been a social worker and a group home counselor, I wanted to be more involved with the education side after seeing so many students struggle. From Innovations, I became a counselor to help kids find and become the best versions of themselves. From Cordova High, I love talking about college, careers, and future goals with students. Many of our students are first generation, unsure of career potential, and being there to help them through this process is so rewarding. From Mills Middle School, I chose to be a school counselor because as a student advocate, I want all students to know that they have at least one trusting and safe adult on campus that will listen to them. I also want to support them so they reach their full potential. Vista Del Lago High School, I wear many hats, but the one I enjoy the most is the connections I make with the students. From Folsom High School, our role is to be the go-to for everything. We connect and support all the parties. With that, I'm going to end there, but I hope that you enjoy our periodic updates this year and you get a chance to learn more about life as a school counselor.
Great, thank you. That's a great idea, though. I love the updates. All right, next speaker is Nicole Estrada. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, board and district team. I would like to start off by thanking you for your service to our district. We appreciate the personal time and expertise given in order to make sure our students and staff are always supported. My name is Nicole Estrada, and I'm currently a counselor at Folsom High School. At Folsom High, our current student to counselor ratio is 560. We are also currently supporting our alternative education school, Folsom Lake High School students. We are in the process of concluding our college application for seniors, which included a presentation, ongoing several workshop sessions with counselors to do college apps, follow up with parents and students, and over 30 letters of recommendation written by each counselor, along with submission of school reports. This is also our busy time for identifying students at risk, as we are now past halfway point in the semester, going into finals. This includes, but not limited to, teacher outreach, grade reports, connecting with students and parents. This also has required an increase of student study teams, which are held before school at our site. To date, we've had over 30 SST meetings. Counselors are in charge of coordinating and supporting the SST plan that is drafted by the teachers and students, and reviewing to make sure the plan is meeting the students' needs. We are also responsible for assisting with managing weekly risk assessments for students who are struggling and may be at risk of self-harm. We meet bi-monthly with our admin, mental health specialist, school psychs, and school nurse to discuss concerns with students and to ensure we are providing the appropriate resources and support. At Folsom High, we conducted an SEL survey bi-monthly to allow students to rate how things are going. All students that score a 1 on the survey receive immediate action from a counselor. Additionally, all counselors will be trained on Panorama, and we will be using that platform to gather data and information to further determine how best to support our students' needs. These are just some highlights of this time of the year, and typically daily duties of providing resources to support students, families, and school staff, being available to our students in crisis, family concerns, as well as to peer and school issues. Folsom High also recently conducted a needs assessment with our teachers, our students, and our parents, and we were able to gather the data and identify our department's strengths as well as areas of growth. It was a clear indicator that our families recognize our caseloads and wish that there was more time and support for individual academic post-high school planning. We invite you all to come at any point if you have further questions or just to see our school sites and see what we offer about the services we provide to the FCUSD students, families, and staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jolene McCarthy. Welcome.
Good evening, FCUSD staff. My name is Jolene McCarthy, and I've been an elementary PE teacher for 9 years at Navigator. We are doing amazing things with our students, but today I'm here to talk to you about some of the challenges the elementary PE department is battling every day. I'd like to start with an abbreviated definition of PE. It is a standard-based program to develop motor skills, knowledge and behaviors of healthy living, fitness, sportsmanship, self-efficacy, and emotional intelligence. These are things that a quality PE program can do for our students when armed with appropriate facilities, funding, equipment, and class sizes. First, I would like to address the amount of time the PE teachers get to see our elementary students. 60 minutes for 1st through 3rd grades and only 30 minutes for 4th and 5th grade. Our standards are designed for 100 minutes of PE a week, and our students need more time with a credentialed PE teacher. Next, I would like to address the lack of inclement weather space for elementary PE. Rain, heat, and poor air quality have become major issues, and going into a teacher's classroom for PE is not appropriate or safe. At Navigator, we are fortunate to have a beautiful gym, but it is also our lunchroom for more than half the day. Usable inclement indoor space at every elementary school needs to be a priority, plus some type of plan for our existing schools, like a covered shade structure or portables would benefit the students greatly. I would also like to discuss equipment for PE. It is vital for each student to have their own equipment, just like they have their own computer or textbook. Rancho schools received a one-time funding from the city, but it is vital that elementary PE equipment be forecasted into the district budget every year for every site. Last, I would like to address scheduling challenges and the number of classes we teach a day. We strive to teach no more than 8 classes a day, 6 on common planning days, to ensure we can deliver quality lessons. If you look at how many times a day we move, clean up, set up, transition between levels, work around recess, etc., it is clear that squeezing in too many classes makes it nearly impossible to deliver these quality lessons. In closing, Elementary PE could do so much more for our community and our students if the district makes physical education a priority. In these times of increased access to screen time and junk food at such a young age, it is critical to make health and physical activity a #1 priority. Thank you for your time, and please remember to get active every day.
Thank you. And next is John Corcoran.
Good evening, members of the board.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for your dedication to the staff and students here in the district. I'm going to preface this by saying that I don't agree with the following as being good things, but I'm going to say two things and want you to just kind of think about it for a second. A student bringing a gun on campus and then somebody writing racist remarks on a locker room wall. Which one of those poses the greatest threat to the school community? I'll just pause for effect here. As I'm sure everybody here knows, on October 12th, there was a communication from the district about an incident at Vista Del Lago High School during a sporting event where some racist remarks were written on a locker room wall, and an investigation ensued. And but what you guys probably didn't know, maybe you guys knew, but maybe the people in this room didn't know, unless they were at that campus, was that a student was arrested for bringing a firearm on Cordova High School campus in August of this year. Only a few people got to find out about that, but I think everybody got to find out about the racist remarks on the locker room wall. And I was curious about the investigation, how it was conducted, the methodology, and I want to get a copy of that report. And I've been denied a copy of that report by Dr. Collegian. And I think under the Public Records Act, if student information and any other personal information is redacted from the report, I'm not sure why that would not be releasable to the public under the Government Code 6253. So anyway, I'm just here to let you know that transparency is only so transparent here at the district when members of the public ask for public records from this government agency. And that's disappointing. So I don't see why that couldn't be released to the public, which I'm a member of, and I'm also a parent in this district. And I just find that that's kind of shady, hiding things from the public when you ask for public records. And you can cite all the ed codes and federal laws you like about protecting student privacy, which I totally get. But if you redact that information, that should be something that you could release to the public. That's just me. So anyway, keep up the good work, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Are there anyone online?
Yes.
Okay.
Jennifer?
Welcome, Jennifer. There, Jennifer?
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
Hi, Jennifer Tarbox. I am extremely sad to not be there tonight, but I definitely had to call in because I just cannot let the day go without me publicly thanking Josh Hoover for everything he did for thousands of students and parents in this community. A couple years ago, when I had posted about needing our kids to get back to the classroom, Josh reached out to me and had been just a saving grace for so many of us and for fighting for us and standing by us. And I just want you to know, Josh, on your final day there, that there are thousands and thousands of students in this community who appreciate you and thousands of parents who are so grateful for you being on that board and for what you did for us. So I just wanted to make sure that I was able to publicly thank you. And again, I'm so sad I could not be there tonight. But again, you will be missed on our board, but I'm so grateful that you're continuing to fight for the parents and the kids in our communities with the state. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay. All right. That takes us to reports of district organizations. The first is the Student Advisory Board.
Thank you, Board President Reed. So last week, Rocio and I held a fishbowl discussion on alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs at the Safety Advisory Committee meeting with about 10 other students. And I'd like to share just a few of the main points that we came out of that conversation with. So one of them was that students discussed their concerns with disciplining youth for substance use rather than providing them with mental health supports and restorative justice practices. Students also discussed the lack of trust that some of them and their peers have for counselors and general mental health supports. Students are not only aware of what mental health supports are offered to them, they also sometimes feel disconnected to administrators and counselors, and they also have a lack of understanding of who to talk to when struggling with substance use. We also discussed the benefit of implementing some kind of peer-to-peer counseling service in which students could access mental health support or substance use support from students who truly understand their experiences as a young person. Also, we had an SAB field trip this past week where we attended the Civic Learning Summit in Sacramento. I sit on the Chief Justice's Power of Democracy Committee advising on improving civic learning for students, so I was excited to share this initiative with my peers, and they were able to learn about our advocacy efforts at other schools in California, and we also got to meet the recently elected California Chief Justice, Guerrero. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. Next is the California School Employees Association. Are they online? No? Okay. Then we'll move forward to the Folsom Cordova Education Association. Welcome, Angelica.
Well, good evening. I'm going to start by just saying thank you, Mr. Hoover, for your service, and I'm not going to make any more comments about elections at this point because they're still being decided, so I'll hold off on those. Had a couple of really good site visits since our last meeting. Folsom Hills Elementary, some great robotics things going on. So much fun. In fact, I had to take a little video and send it to my grandson because I'm like, he's going to be all over this, and this is something he's going to want to do in a year or two. They also had some wonderful art projects that are led by their parents. They have 2 kilns, and the parents were just thrilled to show everything off to us. So exciting things happening for their students. Empire Oaks Elementary, Mrs. Parenson has done such an incredible job organizing their PLC process. I can't say enough about the structure that she's given to it. And she's worked with her teachers. It's very teacher-driven, which I think is really leading to the success of PLCs on their campus. Their guiding coalition represents teachers in planning, and I've also seen this success being a successful measure that other campuses have used. I want to thank you in advance for approving our MOU that's coming up under agenda consent for common planning time for kindergarten and TK. This is so crucial, as you know, through our discussions about common planning time. Just really critical for our teachers to have that time to meet and plan together, and also to implement PLCs, which we know is really important. And to get that, to be able to do those with fidelity, they need that time together. The last thing I want to say, I know it's coming up later this evening, but I did want to touch on ethnic studies real quick. The presentation that's coming up has a very strong rationale that's been researched and beautifully articulated by our C&I team. Carrie Jackson reached out to FCEA a little while back and shared the presentation with us to seek our approval. I'm proud to say our executive board unanimously approves the idea of moving forward with ethnic studies in our district. So I just wanted to say that C&I has our full support in that. So thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to the Folsom Cordova Leadership Association. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Board President Reed, Dr. Kaligian, and members of the board. I also want to say thank you, Mr. Hoover, for your service.
Thank you.
And I also do want to voice support for the Ethnic Studies course on behalf of FCLA. I think it will do wonders for our students. The month of November, though, is a nice one because it brings that cool weather, and we have some beautiful campuses that have some wonderful fall colors, but it's also a time to reflect. And so tonight I really want to focus on gratitude, which is something that we foster, teach, and really support and promote here in Folsom, Cordova. And I want to share a little bit about what's going on at the sites in terms of gratitude. So at the elementary sites, students, staff, and families are sharing with one another about what they're grateful for. They feature gratitude as a character trait of the month. At Riverview STEM, there's a gratitude wall of fame and gratitude quotes of the week. Over at Russell Ranch, they have Thoughtful Thursdays, where they notice and acknowledge each other, and they're really seeing how powerful it is to recognize the strengths in one another. We often hear about treasure boxes for students in terms of rewards, and Principal Kat Berry over at Oak Chan highlights staff members once a week, and they get to visit a staff treasure box for the week, which I thought was really cool. Gratitude is extended to our families in the form of surveys like the one Principal Soul sent to parents asking for them to share how the Mather Heights community impacts their child. And over at Natoma Station, families are able to visit a virtual gratitude interactive library this month. In the secondary world, students at Mitchell write gratitude cards to staff members. And at Folsom High, they recently planned dress-up days, classroom decorated doors, and gratitude grams. That tradition is a long-standing one, I know. On behalf of FCLA, I am grateful to be part of a district that is focused not only academics, but fostering the human side of our students. And I think gratitude is an important one. So thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, the District English Learner Advisory Committee.
Ms. Cabrera couldn't be with us this evening, but there is no report.
All right, thank you. All right, that takes us to agenda consent. Before there's a motion, is there anybody who wants to pull any items? No, I actually would like to pull item E. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda except for item E?
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Clark, seconded by Mr. Hoover. Superintendent, take the roll, please.
Yes. Ms. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Srivastava?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Short?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thanks. And on agenda item E, I was just kind of curious what's going on at our future high school site.
We'll ask Mr. Washburn to come and address that particular item.
Yeah, good evening. We had done previous traffic studies and analysis. You know, we've been planning for the high school site for quite some time, master planning, working with the developers in the cities. Toll Brothers has a development immediately adjacent to our high school site, and they're doing site development improvements. They did not, one of their engineers did not get our previous improvement plans, and so we had a little bit of coordination issues there. So we worked with them very quickly to try to get some plans in place so we could get additional streets, a lane between at Oak Avenue and Mangini Parkway, a turnout lane, some asphalt, gutters, some drainage, some additional work done there now while they're doing their work. Because if it wasn't done now, then when we did our project later on, much of that work would have to be ripped out and completed at a later date. So it's really a cost benefit for us to do it now, work with them. They can do work with their contractors. We get it, probably save thousands of dollars by having the work done now. It won't have to be ripped out later. So we worked together with them. We submitted plans to the city. Our engineers reviewed it. It got approved. And they're going to do the additional work that will benefit part of the district now that won't have to be done later.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. All right, is there a motion to approve agenda consent item E?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Hoover. Second by Mr. Clark. Superintendent?
Ms. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Srivastava?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Short?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no introductions today, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That takes us to item 11, public hearing. Just do this. All right, public hearing, proposed name for secondary school in the Folsom planning area. Superintendent.
Yes, at the October 6, 2022 Board of Education meeting, the board directed my staff and I to move forward and name a secondary school in the Folsom planning area after William Liedersdorf, a prominent historical individual that has left a legacy. And we were asked to go back to our facility naming committee to ask the recommendation for either a middle school to be named after Liedersdorf or a high school. And after really productive discussion with our committee, the recommendation is to name the first middle school to be built in the Folsom Plan area, Liedersdorf Middle School. And part of that rationale is that currently our middle schools in Folsom, Cordova are named after those prominent individuals who have left a legacy in our district. So with that, that would be the recommendation, but we also open up the public hearing as our board policy requires to see if there is any other comment.
All right. The board will obviously be able to discuss it under the discussion action item. So is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Anybody online? No. All right. Then we can close the public hearing. All right. That takes us to agenda item 12, discussion action. The first one is approve proposed name for secondary school in Folsom planning area and facility at Folsom Middle School. Superintendent.
Yes, so this would be the time for the board to take action on the recommendation from the naming committee to move forward with the middle school to be built in the Folsom Plan area, Liedersdorf Middle School. The approximate time frame for that school to be built is 2031, 32. It's a ways out there, but when we last deliberated for the name of our next elementary school, which is Alder Creek Elementary, we also like the name Liedersdorf. So we're grateful to the board for letting us consider naming a school in the future, which our policy allows us to do. So this action would allow the board to act upon the committee's recommendation. And there's also a second part to this too. Our committee also considered a community request to name one of the facilities at Folsom Middle School after one of our longtime teachers, educators, athletic directors, coaches, and administrators who is still subbing in our district today, Mr. Robert Mang. And we, again, have policy that allows the board to approve particular facilities at campuses named after individuals. I would like to share just a brief biography of Mr. Robert Mang. For those that might not know, he's provided the Folsom community with many years of exemplary service as a teacher, coach, athletic director, principal, and as the school district's director for professional development, research, testing, and assessment. In 1987, he was California State's Teacher of the Year and has been City of Folsom's Man of the Year twice. While principal at Folsom Middle School, Bob was instrumental in developing a state award-winning teen center located on the campus in partnership with Parks and Recreation. Bob has been a member and held various offices in the Folsom Athletic Association, as well as being one of its original founders. So that would be the second part of our request, and also consensus from our naming committee to bring building at Folsom Middle School, most likely the multi, which would be named something like the Robert Mang or the Bob Mang Recreational Center. We could work on the details of that later, but that would be our recommendation as well.
All right. Questions from the board? No, hearing no questions from the board, we'll take it out to the public for any public comments on this item. None in person. Anybody online? All right, we'll bring it back to the board. Any discussion before entertaining a motion?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for, this is, I know we're naming this quite out in front of what it needs to be named, but I'm really excited for this. This is something that I've kind of been advocating for a while, and I'm excited to see it come to fruition. And also, that fully support naming this facility after Bob as well. So thank you for honoring him in that way.
And I'm happy that two of our board members said that they were disappointed that they wouldn't be able to vote on Liedersdorf, but we proved them wrong. All right, any other comments before? The one last thing I'd like to say is Robert Mang does have quite an impressive history with our district, and I'm very happy that we have this opportunity to name a facility at Folsom Middle School after him. I think it's a very nice tribute, and I look forward to a future ribbon cutting for that as well.
Very good.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll move.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Board Member Srivastava and seconded by Board Member Perez. Superintendent, take the roll.
Yes, Ms. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Srivastava.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Hoover.
Aye.
Mr. Clark.
Aye.
Mr. Short.
Aye.
Mr. Hui.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to item B, annual organizational meeting notice. The annual organization meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Trustees is set for Thursday, December 15th, 2022, 6 p.m., Education Service Center, Rancho Cordova, California. Superintendent.
Well, I think you just read the whole item, the title there. We are required by Ed Code to set an annual meeting within a time frame each year and within a 15-day period between December 9th and 23rd. So our next regularly scheduled meeting in December will fall on December 15th and be declared as our organizational meeting with your approval.
All right. Any discussion? Any comments from the public? Online? All right.
I'll move it.
Yeah.
All right,
I'll second.
motion by Mr. Short, second by Mr. Clark. Superintendent?
Ms. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Srivastava?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Short?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to agenda item 13, which is discussion. First is Measure G, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee 2020-2021 Annual Report Presentation. Welcome. Hi.
Okay, here we go again. Members of the Board of Trustees, citizens and administration of the district, ladies and gentlemen, as chair of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for the Folsom Cordova Unified School District, it's my privilege and pleasure to present on behalf of the full committee our annual report for I mess up that word every single time, Measure G. The Bond Oversight Committee exists to ensure that the expenditures of the funds collected under the voter-approved bond Measure G are spent on the items and projects voters approved at the time of their vote. The committee is dedicated to ensuring that the public trust is well kept and remains intact throughout the life of the bond. The Bond Oversight Committee is pleased to report that the expenditures of the fiscal year 2020-2021, after a full audit by the outside agency, are in compliance with all laws, regulations, and accounting. On behalf of the entire committee, thank you for this opportunity to serve our district and ensure that all is in the full compliance with the legal and ethical guidelines. Respectfully, Laura Ruby, Chair.
Yay, Laura. Thank you. Any questions from the board? No. Any comments from the public? Online? No. All right, so back to the board. This is just a discussion item.
Yeah.
So, all right. Then we will move on to the next item, which is Measure M, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee 2020-2021 Annual Report Presentation. Welcome again.
All right, we'll try to see the words correctly this time. Members of the Board of Trustees, citizens and administration of the district, ladies and gentlemen, as a member of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for the Folsom Cordova Unified School District, it is my privilege and pleasure to present on behalf of the full committee our annual report for Measure M. The Bond Oversight Committee exists to ensure the expenditures of the funds collected under the voter-approved bond Measure M are spent on the items and projects voters approved at the time of their vote. The committee is dedicated to ensuring that the public trust is well kept and remains intact throughout the life of the bond. The Bond Oversight Committee is pleased to report that the expenditures of the fiscal year 2020-2021, after a full audit by an outside agency, are in compliance with all laws, regulations, and accounting. On behalf of the entire committee, thank you for this opportunity to serve our district and ensure that all is in full compliance with legal and ethical guidelines. Respectfully, Laura Ruby.
All right, questions from the board? All right, any comments from the public? Online? No? All right, this is just a discussion item, so we will move on to the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura.
All right, next agenda item is review ethnic studies high school course outline. Superintendent.
Yes, very excited to be bringing this forward as a discussion item, and I want to first of all thank our team in curriculum and instruction, and specifically Carrie Jackson, who has been our lead on the curriculum and instruction side, with gathering together our teachers who've been working on the committee to research the course outline and thoughtfully bring forward a textbook and a recommendation for us to hear about tonight. I also want to thank Pam Oyen, who runs our Curriculum Advisory Committee, for which this also was presented to, and all the multiple groups that Ms. Jackson has presented as well. But just a little background. AB 101, which was passed in October 2021, makes ethnic studies a graduation requirement in all of our public high schools and publicly funded charters. Schools must offer ethnic studies by the fall of 2025. And the first class meeting the graduation requirement of 2029-30. We would like to initiate the process of implementing the course as an elective before it is required for us to kind of work the kinks out as we are presenting the course outline that you'll see before us tonight, and then also to see which grade level span or grade levels at the high school level is really going to be the most conducive to adding this elective by the time it's required to do so. So there's a lot of information that will be shared tonight in a presentation and a chance for the board to ask questions. So at this time, I'm going to invite Ms. Carrie Jackson to come up and share a presentation. Welcome, Carrie.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction, which I'm very humbled by. Thank you. So good evening, Superintendent Dr. Koligian, board members, FCUSD staff, and community members. I am excited to talk to you today about ethnic studies. My name is Carrie Jackson. I have worked in this district for nearly 12 years. I am a proud teacher, equity leader, and currently serve as a curriculum and instruction specialist. I am proud to speak before you tonight to discuss the Ethnic Studies course, which should be implemented during the 2023-2024 school year. Before getting into the details of my presentation, I would love to take just a few minutes to tell you about myself and why ethnic studies is so important for our community. I never had a course like ethnic studies in high school. Instead, I experienced a disconnect in my history and social science classes. The extent of history about Filipinos was limited to the Spanish-American War and one paragraph about the Bataan Death March during World War II. My first year at Sac State, however, opened opportunities to take ethnic studies courses, such as Asian American Studies, African American Studies, and a sociology course titled Race and Society. It was the first time I realized that a rich history of my community existed. I learned of Filipino revolutionaries, including Jose Rizal and Gabriela Silang. I also learned of the earliest migration of Filipinos brought over by Spaniards in the 16th century for unfree labor. The Filipinos brought over for the following 240 years, married and blended in with Native Americans and Mexican communities. Understanding the shared bloodlines of Filipinos, Mexicans, and Native Indigenous peoples offered a sense of connection and solidarity. This solidarity was realized throughout various social justice movements of the 1960s, including the farm workers movement led by Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and Larry Itlong, and the ethnic studies movement led by the Third World Liberation Front that was student-led. I know how transformative this knowledge was for me academically and socially and emotionally. And I only wish I had the opportunity to take such courses earlier. I hope this is an opportunity we do not deny to our students. So why now? I think Dr. Koligian covered this, but just to recap, AB 101 passed in October of 2021, making ethnic studies a graduation requirement in all public high schools and publicly funded charters. Schools must offer ethnic studies by fall of 2025, with the first class meeting the graduation requirement by the 2029-2030 school year. And so part of the reason we want to do this is because we want to make sure that the course that we offer in this district is rich, that it's rigorous, that we're proud of it. And the only way to do so is to have some time to work out the kinks, as Dr. Koligian said. And so no matter what this is coming, and we have to offer it, and it's best that we are able to offer it to students who are excited about taking it, who want to take it. Offering it as an elective means that we get to hear their voice, we get to collect data, we get to conduct surveys, and not only is it their voice, but the voice of their families and their communities as well, who will be impacted. And I also want to bring the board's attention and the community's attention to a piece of legislation known as SB 48, dealing with pupil instruction. It's also known as the FAIR Act. Existing law requires that when adopting instructional materials for use in the schools, governing boards of school districts shall include materials that accurately portray the role and contributions of both men and women, Native Americans, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, European Americans, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans, persons with disabilities, and members of other ethnic and cultural groups to the economic, political, and social development of California and the United States of America, with particular emphasis on portraying the role of these groups in contemporary society. It is essential to recognize our responsibility to our students in providing a curriculum that is representative of their diverse backgrounds, and we have a legal obligation to represent culturally and diverse groups accurately. This is a brief course description, and I do want to read it because it gives us a sense of what this course is truly about. This ethnic studies course is designed to develop an understanding of how race, ethnicity, nationality, and culture have shaped and continue to shape individuals and society in the United States. The course prepares students to participate in concurrent and subsequent social studies and literature courses with a solid understanding of historical trends and historical thinking. This course is designed to provide students with the knowledge to understand and appreciate the various cultures in their community. The focus is on the experiences of African Americans, Asian Americans, Latinos and Latinas, and other racialized peoples in the United States. Students will be engaged in intellectually and emotionally rigorous content constructed around issues of ethnicity, identity, service, and social justice. Students will research and examine how 20th century events reveal power, privilege, ethnocentricity, systemic oppression, and cultural hegemony that influence their individual experiences into the 21st century. And I did not write that. That is from the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum. This Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum was passed by the State Board of Education in March of 2021, and AB 101 came in October of 2021. So I already talked about ethnic studies. There are 4 foundational principles and 4 themes that we want to stay true to. There is a lot of flexibility with the course, and it's meant to be flexible to be culturally responsive to our communities and the students that are in our classrooms. But at the same time, we want to stay true to the 4 foundational disciplines and racialized groups in the United States that have been underrepresented, that we don't see much of in curriculum. And this includes the African American and Black community, the Chicana, Chicano, Chicanx, Latina, Latino, Latinx community, Native Americans, Indigenous peoples, and American Indians, and Asian American and Pacific Islander studies. And all of these groups, in addition to other groups that are represented in the courses, given that community, must be taught through these themes in identity, in history and movement, or migration, systems of power, and social movements and equity. Here you will see a list of scholarly research that shows ethnic studies courses do support academic achievement and social and emotional learning. This research was included in the Ethnic Studies model curriculum. You can find it there. You can also find references to where the research corroborates these claims. But just briefly, I will talk about some of the important things that ethnic studies will support. Increased critical thinking, increased standardized test scores, increases in GPA, particularly with math and science, increases in graduation rates, increases in college enrollment. It offers college-level coursework. I should also add that the CSU system also requires, it has a graduation requirement that every student that graduates CSU has to take an ethnic studies course, and the UCs are in the process of doing this as well. Building trust in the classroom and increasing skills. On the social and emotional learning side, we have a sense of agency and academic motivation, increases in social and emotional wellness, increases in civic engagement, and lastly, increases in attendance. And I know that it is very easy to say, well, here's the research and here's what it says. And so just a little bit of context, Dr. Sleater was commissioned by the National Education Association back in 2011 to conduct comprehensive research. What is the research that's out there on ethnic studies? And so that is what informed the ethnic studies model curriculum. But since then, there's been much more research over the years, and there's still research being conducted. And so this comprehensive set of research can also be found in Transformative Pedagogy for Ethnic Studies. That was written by Dr. Sleater and Dr. Miguel Zavala, so you can find that there. But here are the studies. If you would like to find them, you're welcome to look into them. But there is overwhelming research that ethnic studies is beneficial for kids. All right, and then the previous slide was on academic achievement, and this slide right here deals with research that connects to social and emotional learning. And so with that being said, I would like to bring our attention to our LCAP goals because those are big goals. Those are lofty goals that we have a few years to deal with. But I think when we look at ethnic studies, it really fits very well into the goals that we're trying to achieve. The goals that we have are informed by our consciousness of our student populations and who we haven't been serving and who we need to serve. So with that being said, goal 1 deals with equitable instruction and guaranteeing equitable instruction. Curriculum, increasing curriculum options, and college and career readiness. Goal 2, increasing community engagement and social and emotional learning. Goal 3, all students will have access to high quality instruction and a broad course of study. And then lastly, for goal 4, focusing on outcomes of success, especially for our historically marginalized populations. And so I just want to emphasize that ethnic studies has always been a student-led movement. It has always been students who have asked for ethnic studies courses. And the parent summits that we have been conducting here in the district have shown that our community is actually asking for culturally relevant curriculum and content across the board, not just one class. But this is the first step in something that we can do. And so it's not just students, it's parents, it's community members. But the first ethnic studies graduation requirement was 30 years ago, and this was at Berkeley High School. And in 2015, or the 2015-2016 school year, Sac City Unified's board also adopted a graduation requirement. They piloted it the following year, and then it kickstarted. And so again, this was student-led. Their actual student advisory council ran and conducted their own survey, had 1,000 students from across the district who said, we need ethnic studies and we need it now. They created a coalition with community members in Sac State, and they were able to achieve that. And in addition to that, they created a relationship with Sac State's credential program so that they have teachers who are qualified to teach ethnic studies. And so I mentioned this already, but again, we are preparing students for college. We are preparing our students for the 21st century. We are in a globalized community. They need to have global perspective. And we can't expect them to have global perspective if they cannot have perspective about the United States. And so with that being said, preparing them in high school means they're prepared for these conversations in life, in their encounters, and in higher education. And it's becoming increasingly important for them to have these conversations responsibly. And several school districts throughout California have already established the high school requirement. I talked about Sac City, Los Angeles Unified has it as a graduation requirement, Fresno Unified, Riverside Unified, San Diego Unified, and San Francisco Unified, just to name a few. But on a local level, we can see that there are already so many districts that are offering ethnic studies. So we see ethnic studies in Elk Grove, their board approved in the 1920 school year. In Twin Rivers, their board approved in the 2021 school year. Natomas Unified, 21-22. Vacaville, 2021. Sac City, 2015-2016. San Juan, 15-16. Roseville Joint Union High School District, 1920. So I would love to add us to that list of 22, 23. So talking about the textbook that was chosen by our committee, we did have a committee of teachers come together. On that committee, we also had administrators, and then we had parents join after. And then we actually have parents from all of our major high schools who have joined since, and they would really love to move forward in the community work to build the syllabi and work with the professional development necessary to get this course going. But the textbook that we chose was Our Stories and Our Voices. Really, there were only two big textbooks in the game, one that was prominently used in Southern California. It is used in Los Angeles Unified. And one that is used in the Sacramento area. So all of the schools that were on that previous slide are using this textbook. And so when Sac City actually, when they went through the process of getting ethnic studies as a graduation requirement, this book was actually written for them. It was meant to be a reader. And they said, no, we really want a textbook. And so the authors worked with the students to create a textbook, and it was not only used in this area, but because there aren't a lot of ethnic studies high school books in the game, it was actually used in a lot of other places throughout the United States. So with that being said, we do have two authors here, Dr. Dale Allender, who is a big part of the credential program at Sac State. And then we also have Dr. Gregory Yee Mark, who was actually a student who was a part of the Third World Liberation Front. So when we think about this movement being student-led and it starting in the university system, he was part of that movement to expand ethnic studies throughout California's universities. And so both of these individuals are people of color, and all of the perspectives that are in this book are not solely from their perspectives. It's actually a collection of narratives of people who represent their own communities and who share their stories. So it really is, it does chronicle so many different narratives, which are really important to ethnic studies. And so we have 3 versions of the course, just making sure that every high school has flexibility in implementing what's best for them. We have a semester course, a full year course, and an APEX online course for our independent studies programs. And so our mission statement is very important in really bringing this all together. FCUSD is committed to providing excellence in educational programs that carry high expectations for each student's success. In collaboration with our community, the mission of FCUSD is to ensure all students demonstrate high levels of learning through our commitment to continuous cycles of improvement, transformative social emotional learning, and engaging culturally responsive instruction. And this new mission statement was board approved in June of 2022. So that last statement, I believe, is incredibly important to uphold. I think our community believes it's incredibly important to uphold. In speaking to all of the different groups that I spoke to, especially with regard to parents, I think sometimes we expect that there's going to be a lot of pushback, but really it was parents saying, 1, it's about time, and 2, what else are you doing? So I think we need to listen. So yeah. And I'm also very excited to say, that it is still a student-led movement. We have so many students across all of our major high schools that came together, got their cultural clubs and their organizations, and global perspective clubs and organizations. There was a lot of student mobilization to see, is this something that you want? Do we support ethnic studies? And it was overwhelmingly yes. So we have letters from Cordova High School students, we have letters from Vista Del Lago students, and we have letters from Folsom High School as well. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up with 6 points to really summarize what we just talked about today. So the first is legislation's already here. And we are not creating a graduation requirement for next year. We are creating a 3-year elective. We want to expand educational access. We don't want to wait to the last minute to do this. And even though the legislation doesn't require by law that we do this as soon as we know we don't want to deny our students the opportunity to do it when we can. We have a model curriculum in place as well. I know that there's a lot of talk about what's going on with ethnic studies, and I do understand some of the debate around earlier versions of the model curriculum and all of the experts that were a part of designing those first drafts. But I do also understand that we don't have an ethnic studies program, and I would love to be able to build it and hear from the community about what to add on top of what we get from the ethnic studies model curriculum. But because we don't have an established program, it is wise for us, at least in this first year, to adhere to it. And that's what we're doing. And the text that was chosen by the committee is widely used locally. As I mentioned, all of the schools that are in the local area are using it. And we're doing it for 3 years. We are going to be able to collect great data. We are going to feel really confident about the class that we offer when it does have to be legally mainstreamed. And on top of that, we have the money. We have grant money. So there's no need to sit on this. And we're ready to move forward. And I just hope that I can get board support on this. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Clark.
Turn this thing on. Yeah, I got it on. Great presentation. I'm glad that it was real laid out and thought out, and I appreciate you presenting it the way that you did. Questions. I noticed that, and I think, can we go to page 14? So let's talk about these schools that have already adopted this. And I'm just kind of curious. Sac City, 2015-2016 year. San Juan, 2015-2016. Obviously, those are our neighboring districts. Elk Grove was 2019-2020. Roseville, 2019-2020. And the other ones were 2020-2021, with the exception of Natomas that just approved theirs in 21-22. My question is, why are we so late on doing this? I mean, this should have been a long time coming. So why are we a little late?
I wish I could answer that question entirely. What I will say is that there was an attempt to get an APEX course approved in April of 21 by Kevin Brown at Walnut Wood High School. And at the time, we, or I should say, I was told, I was passed along this information that we didn't want that to be the first class and the only class. And so I know I mentioned a lot that this has really been student-led, and not putting it on the students that they haven't demanded this course. I think a lot of it does weigh on us as educators. Yeah. But, it's just, I think, a consciousness and awareness. I think that sometimes with everything that's going on, especially in the last 2 years, maybe not realizing that districts were moving in this direction already. But I agree, it's long overdue. And we did get moving on it very quickly after it was mandated through AB 101. So that was passed in October of 2021. I came in October of 2021. And then during that spring semester is when we put our committee together, and we took that whole semester to review the textbooks. And so we weren't able to actually get a chance to present before the CAC because that's done in the fall. And we did that in the fall of this year. And so we also have to have that approved fairly early because schools already start registering in January. So also we didn't get the money until late of last spring. So that does have some impact. It's always easier to do things with money.
Sure, absolutely. I agree with you. And, you know, I want to piggyback on what you said about it was student-led. And I'm pretty sure, and I want to congratulate the students on the jobs from Vista, Folsom, and Cordova for pushing this through and making sure that this happens. But again, I honestly think it should have been district-led a long time ago. So, you know, I'm glad you did this presentation. I'm glad that you kind of mentioned the groups and the studies. I know that I am pushing for a resolution, I think in January, for IYT, Improve Your Tomorrow, and Project 1300. And I hope that by that time we will be able to get this approved so we can be on the list with the other ones.
I would love that too.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Short?
I want to kind of piggyback on what he was saying earlier. Many years ago, and I know that one of the questions is multicultural education is an outgrowth of this. And out in the Valley, many, many years ago when I was a kid, my mother taught multicultural education to the migrant education. And so it was very beneficial for the folks down there that experienced the different culture and integration with everybody to help create, you know, a cultural group awareness of the immigrants and the Hispanics and everybody else, and gain accurate representation and knowledge of cultural groups, promote intercultural interaction and harmony within the school setting, critical thinking, like you're saying, current social issues and current diversity, and advance equity in education, and promote the multiculturalism and multicultural education amongst educators. To answer some of the questions, I don't think we're in the Central Valley. It was a lot different down in that area. I think it's finally getting up here. But many years later, I'm talking 30-some years ago, that's what they were doing. So I think this is about time. So like, it is an outgrowth of multicultural. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
And actually, Dr. Sleater, who was commissioned to collect the research on ethnic studies, was first an educator in the realm of multicultural education. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Jackson, for your devotion and time to process this presentation. I wholeheartedly support the proposal to implement an ethnic studies course in our district due to the fact that there is a multicultural diversity among our students and in this country. It is a multi-country, which is protected by the law, and it is vitally important that students are being educated about this content to expand knowledge and awareness of racism, microaggressions, and discriminations in our schools. With this course, all students can thrive with other groups as they continue learning about themselves and their community. And at the Learning Civic Summit this Tuesday, we did have students from Fresno Unified mention their ethnic studies course and how it has increased their critical thinking and awareness. And I am undocumented myself, so I learned about my Guatemalan and indigenous background through my mother. So now I take lots of pride in that. Though I wished I could have had the chance to enroll in this course throughout my high school years, I'm sure several other students in our district will be eager to be presented with this course if approved. So I hope that the proposal of this course can be moved forward for implementation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hui?
Yeah, and again, thank you for the presentation. Really appreciated it. Just one question up on slide 7, where it shows the different benefits of the ethnic studies courses. Just curious, from your perspective, what do you understand as the correlation between ethnic study courses and then increased GPA, math and science scores, et cetera?
Well, based in looking at the research, I think, this is what the research says, that there's this assumption that students are disheartened, that they get this sense of victimization when they learn about the struggles of their ancestors and their communities. The reality is it has the opposite effect. It's empowering. A child who sees major inequities, especially economically, or with regard to access to resources, and they see that there are certain groups of people who may belong to a different racial group, and they see that there's an inferiority and superiority based in that access, they may say, well, it's just because inherently this is my community. There's nothing that can be done about it. When they learn more about the policies and the laws that have existed in this country for a long time that have contributed to systemic racism and oppression, it empowers them because they understand that this is something that doesn't make them a victim. It's something that actually connects them with their community. It makes them strive for more. It gives them a sense of understanding, and they yearn to learn more. And they also recognize that the people who have been great reflections of their community, those are people they strive to be, right? And I don't want to say it's just for people in the racialized disciplines that I mentioned. It's all students. It gives perspective. We are greater when we know what everyone goes through. We have different lenses for looking at the experiences that other people have. And it's even stronger when we can make those connections because of systemic reasons, when we can trace that back to policy and laws, or we can look at institutions, not just political institutions or economic institutions or educational institutions. I mean, we see ourselves doing the work, and race is not something that is new to education. The discussions of race is not new. I mean, we talk about it in government class. When we look at demographics, when we look at who votes certain ways, right? Politicians are looking at that. And it's not exclusive to any political party. It's just what is done to be strategic. So when we deny our students the opportunity to also engage in those conversations, that's disempowering, that's disenfranchising. And so it's important to have open and honest conversations.
Thank you so much for that answer. I have some comments, but I'll save them until that portion.
Okay, any other questions?
Sure. Let's see here.
Mr. Hoover?
So in regards to the model curriculum, so what exactly are we discussing tonight, or what is being proposed for approval? Is it I guess just can you explain like how that process works? What is our curriculum going to be in this district? Based on your recommendation.
Sure. So we have written, technically the Apex version is written by Apex, right? That's a universal program. We did not write that. The two courses that we did write, we have a semester and a full year long. That's just to accommodate. We have some schools that have a block schedule. Perhaps they wanted to fill that full block. We just didn't want there to be any barriers. This is an elective course. So with that, when this becomes a core course, we will go through this process again. It will go up for a much more, a larger community review. This is an elective. So when you approve it, what that means is then schools, it's left to schools, and it will be up to their administrations and their counselors and their students in their communities to decide if they're going to implement it for next year. So you're the first step. We've got to get past the board first to be able to offer it. But if we cannot get approval from the board in the fall semester, then they won't be able to register for the spring semester. They start pushing that paperwork as early as January.
So I guess I'm kind of referring to in your comments, you mentioned that we need to stick with the model curriculum for now. What exactly do you mean by that? Is that, I guess my question being, do we have an option to go a different direction?
yes, there are a lot of different directions we can go. I think, again, I want to avoid saying I think. The model curriculum was actually legislated in 2016, and the model curriculum was not passed in 2021. There were a lot of voices that had a say in shaping that. And I will say that the folks that were invited to be a part of designing that curriculum in the beginning, although they were experts, they had taught ethnic studies for a very long time, there were other groups who said, we got to think about areas of inclusion. We have to think about things that make this comfortable to mainstream. We want to leave more flexibility so districts can make decisions about what they want to do. So the ethnic studies model curriculum is guidance. It provides districts that have not done this before with a framework for what to use. Of course, anything is open in the future for what we want for our mainstream. That's not what we're doing for the first 3 years. The first 3 years will be looking at the model curriculum. Model curriculum has great resources. It's got tremendous lessons. It's got a lot of course outlines with guidance as well. And we also have a textbook that has been used in a lot of local districts. And 2 of the course outlines are actually school districts that use that book as well. So with that, I would say when we do another community review, that can be up for discussion. But as of right now, I don't see it as all too relevant.
So do you think that that process would be too time consuming to complete prior to kind of the goal of starting this curriculum? What was it, 2023? As an elective, is it a time issue in terms of why we're going with the model curriculum versus adopting something on our own or doing a more kind of in-depth, process for creating our own curriculum?
Absolutely. We had a committee come together, and that could have been a direction that we went. We thought it was wise not having any experience and making sure that our teachers had the resources that they needed, especially in the first year, that they had something concrete they could look at and say, oh, this is the direction that we're going, that was wise for the first year. There's a lot of flexibility in the first 3 years that we are running this as an elective, and our committee will make decisions that are best for our students. But again, this will go through another community review when it becomes a core class.
Let's see here. Are the other districts that, the other districts that are doing this, are most of them, as far as we know, relying on the model curriculum as well, or are any of them going a different direction? Do we know those? I know the slide showed the ones that are participating, but I was curious if any of them are choosing not to go with the model curriculum.
So most of the schools that you saw, or most of the districts, actually created, their boards passed before AB 101 was passed. And March of 2021 is when they had an official model curriculum that was approved by the state board. So I would say that their framing of their courses were probably also part of committee work. They were part of looking at the experts, looking at how other schools had already done it. I know there's so much connection in the ethnic studies community, and they're willing to share everything. I mean, at the end of the day, they just want kids to have access to their histories and access to this knowledge. And so with that, it's a framework, and districts do have flexibility to make decisions outside that framework. It's something that provides districts guidance, but it's not an end-all be-all. But schools have been doing this. I mean, we talked about multicultural education, but even just with ethnic studies, so many schools have already been doing this for a long time, well before the ethnic studies model curriculum. So
yeah, and I agree with that, and I think that's why I think it's it's interesting. I almost would be interested in looking at some of these, and in fact, you guys are going to be ones making this decision, not me. But I think that the board would probably very much benefit from kind of an analysis of what other districts in our area are doing as a comparative framework to see if it's a direction we would rather go. And I suggest this, because of the controversy that the model curriculum continues to be embroiled in. There continue to be groups in the Jewish community that have raised significant concerns, even about the approved model curriculum. I think there is some truth to the fact that it is improved beyond the first proposed version. But there are still a number of groups in the Jewish community that have serious concerns about, the anti-Semitism that exists within the current model curriculum that the state has approved. And so I think it would be really wise for our district to just be very cautious about what we approve. It's not about whether or not ethnic studies is the right way to go. I think you're absolutely right that, in fact, I actually commend our district getting out in front of this, because I think it's important that we really work through this as an elective before it becomes a graduation requirement. But I think we need to be very thoughtful before we dive into something. And really, I think it'd be really helpful if the board could kind of get an idea for what these other school districts are doing, and whether or not maybe they all are using the model curriculum, and that would be definitely very informative. But if they're not, what approach are they taking, and is that an approach that we can also look at? So I think that would be great information. I've got some further comments as well, but I'll save them for after.
I would like to provide a response.
Sure.
Yeah. So we did go through looking at many of the courses, and as mentioned, they were many of these course outlines you can find through the UC Doorways platform. You have to get a course approved. You can actually look those up. You can see what those course outlines look like. I have been working with the UC Davis History Project to see what course outlines have been passed. So I was very familiar with what already exists. With regard to the comments about the Jewish community, there's a lot of division in the Jewish community. What I will say is that the Jewish caucus of the state assembly, or the state legislature, I would say, actually said, this latest version is a good version. We give it our stamp of approval, and it has gone through many revisions. And we think, the fact that the considerations of the Armenian community, the Sikh community, and the Jewish community were taken into account, and the Arab community. So these lessons that represent these communities were added to the lessons that are provided as sample lessons that teachers can use that actually support those communities. So I just wanted to provide that response. The ethnic studies model curriculum went through a number of revisions. So I understand that not everybody is satisfied, and I think that could be said for all ends of the spectrum. But I do believe that what's wisest for a school district that has no program in place, that it's the best direction that we can go, especially in our first year.
I'll save my comments for after, but I would like more information provided to the board on that in terms of what the approaches that other school districts are taking. I think it'd be helpful to see a comparison.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my comment now. I'm not feeling too well, so just in case I have to step out at any point during the meeting. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all the students, parents, and faculty who came out in support of ethnic studies tonight, and also to Ms. Jackson and all of the other folks who worked so hard on bringing this to the district. I have been advocating for ethnic studies in the district for the past 3 years, so this change feels like a long time coming. But even before me are decades of Black and brown organizers who paved the way for this curriculum. Ethnic studies is so much more than just an academic course. It is a lifelong commitment to standing in defense of marginalized people, to calling out injustice, and moving towards a more equitable and fair society for all. The implementation of ethnic studies aligns perfectly with our district-wide commitment to equity and also our equity board policy. Similar to Rocio, I wish I could have taken this class in high school to learn about my own ancestry and also about youth advocacy in school. I think I would have gotten involved in youth advocacy far earlier than I did had I taken a course like this one. So I stand unequivocally in support of ethnic studies, and I look forward to offering this pivotal course to our youth next year. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. As for myself, I'll first start by saying I think this makes a lot of sense to launch the program several years before it's required. Obviously, it gives us the opportunity to tweak it before if we can move to there. right, let's see. All right, midway through, it says the focus is on the experiences of African Americans, Asian Americans, Latinos, and other racialized peoples. Can you tell me what other racialized peoples mean?
Well, I believe in that line, we do not see Native Americans included. I believe it is because there are various identifications and preferences for identifying. That could probably be said for a few other of the other terms. But in addition to that, we talked about additions to the ethnic studies model curriculum. So looking at Jewish communities, looking at Arab communities, and so looking at the Sikh community. And so even though some have argued that that still fits into the Asian American identity as far as a recognition for racialized groups, that isn't always what is experienced. The shared experience is different. And so that's where that comes into play.
So we, as a district, could obviously supplement the curriculum then, correct?
Yes, so that would be up to teachers or a district if they had a very large community. But what's really important is still preserving the focus of the disciplines. The 4 groups that are called out are particularly called out for reason. And so when we look at the Third World Liberation movement of students at San Francisco State and at UC Berkeley, these were groups, BSUs, Asian Pacific Islander groups. These were Native American groups that came together, indigenous groups that came together, and it was bringing attention to the third world, colonized regions of the world that had been stripped of their histories, stripped of that knowledge. And so we look to the Americas, and we look to Africa, and we look to Asia. And so that's where those 4 disciplines come from, is that this is what was lacking in the college institutions that students were attending. They knew that they were being denied access to their history and their culture. And so it's important for us to maintain those disciplines. Is there flexibility to supplement? Yes. But I do think we need to be conscious of still maintaining those focused disciplines. And we also need to be focused on the themes that we are teaching through. So when we bring in other groups, are we supporting the themes that are the foundation of ethnic studies?
So the theme, I could be wrong, but the themes here that I heard you describe is about marginalized populations, systemic racism, oppression, things of that nature. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So if, as a board, the board wanted to expand to have a unit on anti-Semitism, we could do that.
You could do that.
And is anti-Semitism discussed in?
Yeah, so as mentioned, the ethnic studies model curriculum went through many revisions, and part of the compromise included adding lessons that teachers could use that came from communities that felt they were underrepresented by the ethnic studies model curriculum. And so you will see lessons on anti-Semitism included.
And would there be lessons regarding the Muslim population?
Absolutely, yes. Now, this is where a little bit of the division lies. There were some omissions of the ethnic studies model curriculum, particularly with regard to discussing oppression of the Palestinian people in Israel. And this is what has created some division. That material has been removed. I think that it is still important for us to recognize that that can also be supplemented. It's important for us to recognize that when we talk about oppression of the Palestinian people, we are not criticizing Jewish ethnicity, we are not criticizing religion, it's not anti-Semitism, it is a critique of Israeli policy. So with that, those are some things that have been removed. However, those are also some things that have created division over the ethnic studies model curriculum.
Now, I thought the purpose of this was to talk about oppression that occurred in the United States to ethnic groups, not oppression that occurred to groups outside of the United States.
It is not just exclusive to the United States. Now, we have Palestinian students who attend our schools. They have families who are immigrants from Palestine, and therefore their identity is being Palestinian. It is not exclusive that we talk. This is actually a very global perspective course. It's not isolated to the United States. It would be actually unreasonable to omit the histories of the world in shaping the identities of the people who live in this country. It's a common thread in this country.
So will we be discussing the Japanese oppression of the Chinese during World War II in this?
So again, when we talk about Japanese oppression of the Chinese, that actually is taught in U.S. history. That's not something that's missing from the curriculum. And we are also not looking, it would be okay to talk about in comparison, if we're comparing, if we need analogies, if we need ways to be able to conceptualize, it would be fair to bring in anything supplementary. We are looking at communities within the United States. We can still have global perspective. We can still recognize that their histories lie throughout the world. But at the same time, we have to be conscious of the themes that are in place and what it is about the United States. It's a blend of the identity of individuals who have histories that lie in different parts of the world, but these individuals also are living in the United States. And so there are connections. They're not separate. But what I will say about that is that's not absent from the curriculum that already exists.
All right, so bring it back to the U.S. Will we be talking about in this class the oppression of the Japanese community in California during World War II?
Yes, absolutely. That's actually, it is a big part of the course, but I will also say that that's also a big portion of U.S. history. I remember teaching that in U.S. history myself. It was a topic that resonated very much so with my students. And so, yes, that is still included.
They'll be taught in both then?
Yes.
Okay. So will we be talking in this course about the oppression of the Mormon population?
That is not included in the ethnic studies model curriculum. I'm not saying that's not something that cannot be addressed. I think that I don't know that that's really relevant to the curriculum that we're talking about right now. Again, when we're talking about ethnic studies, we are talking about ethnic identity. We're talking about racialized groups. Could there still be a conversation that's brought in some way? Sure. But when we talk about race in the United States, it's important to also make distinctions. People who are white can experience racism. But the racism that we need to address... Hold
back
on.
up. Can you repeat that?
Can I give context?
Sure.
White people can experience racism. However, the racism they experience is not systemic. When I say it's not systemic, I'm talking about U.S. policies and laws that have not been created to intentionally oppress and suppress that group of people. And so with that, we are talking about systemic racism. These groups are underrepresented in curriculum. When we look at Eurocentric history, when we look at studies of standards, historical figures, when we look at assessments, we see Eurocentrism and we see Anglocentrism. We're talking about inclusion, we're talking about representation. Communities have been silenced for too long. These are the communities we want to give voice to.
So, all right, so then are you going to be discussing the marginalized systemic racism and oppression that happened to the Irish community for over 70 years in the United States?
So as mentioned, there are 4 distinct disciplines that we have to remain focused on.
But we could add to it.
you can potentially add whatever you want. It is up to the local agencies to make that decision. And it'll be up to our committee to decide whether or not that is an appropriate inclusion. And we have parents who will be joining that committee.
Right, but if we're talking about marginalized populations and systemic racism and oppression, certainly the Irish population suffered greatly for many, many years, close to a century in this country. So, I think that would obviously be something that we might want to look at.
I think the level of oppression experienced for generations is important for us to recognize.
Yeah.
And not to say, I think that would be fair for comparison to say the Irish community experienced this level of oppression, and then they didn't experience the same level of oppression that other groups did consistently in this country. And in that sense, it would be sufficient to have a conversation about. I am not, again, we are not deciding what gets added or what gets included tonight. We don't say, oh, well, we could do this and we can do that. Our teachers will have a framework to work with. We have course outlines that we have written. We will collaborate. We will have professional development. It's so easy for us in this room to go back and forth about what we think should be included, but there are professionals and experts and scholars who have been teaching ethnic studies for a long time. And I think it's important for us to not just have very loose and sensitive conversations and discussions that actually undermine what we're trying to do, which is make students feel safe in the communities that they are going to school in, to feel represented in the communities that they are going to school in, to feel that their teachers see them. It's not competition. This is not a competition. It's about inclusion. It's about recognizing who is not represented and representing them, representing their voices. And I think we should always have that in mind.
So then, it's not entirely based on marginalized populations, systemic racism and oppression. We're talking about modern versions of marginalized populations, systemic racism and oppression.
I disagree with you. I think I need to be careful with saying, I think when we look at the scholarship that exists on the level of marginalization and oppression experienced by groups in this country, there's the groups that are called out as the disciplines are called out for a reason. Mm-hmm. And so you may disagree, but I think
I'm not disagreeing.
For the sake of what it is we're trying to do, anything is open. We are open to, as a committee, having conversations about what ought to be included. But I think for teachers who are in classrooms with students every day, students at our schools experience discrimination and racism every single day. And we need to recognize their voices in those experiences.
I would agree with you 100%.
And I think that when we are talking about the degree to which students are experiencing discrimination and racism and the consistency that they're experiencing it should speak volumes to what we are focusing on in our classrooms.
So then, again, on slide 5, where it references historical trends and historical thinking, which is a little bit higher up than where I was reading before, and other racialized peoples, then again, it sounds like we have an opportunity to expand the curriculum to include other marginalized populations in the history of this country that have experienced oppression, racism, and have been marginalized. So, we could talk about how people used to put on storefronts, Irish need not apply, where the Irish couldn't even find a single job because they were it was right out there that they need not apply. We could talk hypothetically about the German population that was forced to learn English during World War I and World War II, that had to Americanize their last names because they couldn't be associated with Germany because of Germany being our enemy in World War I and World War II, much the same way that the Japanese culture had to adjust with in the Asian community with World War II. So, I'm very supportive of us launching this program. I do think that perhaps there's room for more inclusion. But as you said, this program is designed to receive additional input at the local level for inclusion. I think, we could really set the tone for how we look at all groups or major groups that have been marginalized and oppressed in the history of the United States. So those are my questions, but I'm very supportive of this program and look forward to its adoption. We're not doing it tonight, but let's go to public comments.
I did just want to give a reply. I know you talked about Irish Americans and you talked about Italian Americans, German Americans. We do learn about those groups a lot, extensively actually, in U.S. history. And I think when we're talking about who needs representation, it's about what is it being experienced still to this day. And so that's why ethnic studies is so important. Yes, it is the historical perspective, but it's also what is being experienced currently today. We have other courses. It's not to say that this material is not important. I'm not saying it should be disregarded. I'm saying that there's a place for it. And not to say that there isn't broad flexibility in being able to potentially include it in an ethnic studies course, but ethnic studies itself is designed to give voice to groups who don't see themselves in their histories at all, or on very minimal levels and in very inaccurate ways, where what they are reading are actually stereotypes, microaggressions, and not representations that are written by their own communities. So I do want to just add that.
Okay, thank you. All right, our first speaker is Sophia, I apologize, Trujillo. I hope I pronounced that close. Trujillo? Trujillo. Okay.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Before we entertain comments, I'd like to make sure that we know that they're students and we give them the additional minute.
So 4 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Board Member Clark.
Okay. All right, welcome.
Hi, hello. My name is Sophia Trujillo. I am a student at Cordova High School, and I just came here because I wanted to voice my support for the Ethnic Studies course. I know when Rocio came to me talking about it, I immediately realized the implications this could have on our students and our wider community. I know that just being able to learn about our differences and really celebrate that encourages a culture of tolerance, acceptance, and respect. And I know, especially at Cordova High School, where we have one of the most diverse student population, it will greatly benefit our students and well, really everyone within the school. And hopefully, as this is a district-wide, elective, we can spread that community across and bridge the gaps that exist between us. And so with that, I just really wanted to say that and acknowledge that with this course, I think it will greatly empower our students to also advocate for social justice for wherever they go after high school, and yeah. So thank you, and I also wanted to thank Ms. Jackson for that presentation. That was lovely. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Colin Weiss. Welcome, Colin.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Board, for being here today. I think we can all understand that even in the most trivial cases where a child may stand in front of us as we're trying to watch our favorite TV show, that when our perspectives are obscured and blocked and not represented, these can lead to miscommunications and, most notably, misunderstandings. Ethnic studies works to resolve these issues. It works to help us understand history from the lenses of others. It works to help impart the knowledge of systemic inequalities and privileges in our society. Ethnic studies works so that students become more cognizant of their role and other roles in our communities. I want to first address the board as saying that my name is Colin Weiss. I am a student at Vista Del Lago High School. I worked over the last couple of months to assemble support from my high school for this program. These include the following organizations: the Asian Student Union, the French Society, their Jewish Heritage Society, our Gender Sexuality Alliance, and many other organizations that offer their full support for the implementation of this program. Moreover, it's very important for me as a junior at the school that this curriculum receives particular oversight and guidance before it becomes a graduation requirement, and that implementing it before the requirement allows us to improve and make the edits that have been discussed at this meeting as soon as possible before it does become that requirement due to the Assembly legislation. I also wanted to discuss how this curriculum helps us better connect with others in our school environment and in our communities. It not only helps fulfill the goals of education, but also all of our communities, which is to understand each other, which is to connect with each other, and most importantly, to include those that are most different from us. Given the recent events at my school in particular, it is only more timely to implement this as soon as possible. We're seeing the effects of lacking this material in our classrooms. I'm hoping that in the future we can have more of these discussions, not just at our board meetings, not just in the public, but in our classrooms with our students. I think parents and our community and all of us are waiting for this. We've been waiting for a while for this. And it's not simply that we are hoping that this can just be implemented in the near future, or we can implement this right when it's required and we don't better and improve it to make it the most effective that it can possibly be. We want this course to be everything that it can be. We want this course to have all the improvements that have been discussed at this meeting. And to do that is not just to debate whether it's going to be implemented, because that's an inevitability. We already know that's going to happen. But it's to do it in an arena such as an elective course where we can work to reform and to model this curriculum to the best of our abilities and make it the most effective it can possibly be. So again, thank you all for being here today. I appreciate my time to speak to you. And I just wanted to leave you with a couple of words, which is that for all of us, even as those that are not specifically mentioned as curriculum, such as myself, it is so vitally important to gain this new perspective and understanding, as for too long, these perspectives have been hidden, these perspectives have been obscured, and it's time for us to recognize these, it's time for us to acknowledge these perspectives, and it's time for us to finally have these discussions in the classroom, which we've been needing for such a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Kara Kreutz. Kara Kreutz, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me be here. My name is Kara Kreutz, and I have 2 students in FCUSD, and I am here to share my support and celebrate the district's consideration of this ethnic studies elective for the 23-24 school year. Penny, and I think you pronounce it Nakatsu, defined ethnic studies as a way of embracing all of the cultures that make up not just this country, but the world, and stated, if we don't understand each other, then how are we going to get along? Researcher Ethan Chang defined ethnic studies as a way of offering young folks a fuller account of the history of the nation. He shared Beckham and Art Nelson's Concordia's metaphor of a high-definition TV, where each pixel is like a perspective. Currently, school curriculum is a hazy vision of the world with only a few pixels because the focus is on one prevailing perspective. By adding more perspectives, it's not taking anything away, it's complementing that history. It's adding more pixels so we can get a sharper, more precise image of the world of which we are all a part. This can be transformative in terms of student self-efficacy and future relationships, whether later in business, government, retail, restaurants, health, education, or even travel. Greater success can be achieved with more insight, knowledge, and confidence when embracing differences with a mutual respect for humanity we all share. The mission of FCUSD is on the agenda, and I was reading it while I was sitting here, and I could not think of much else of being more fitting than adopting this ethnic studies to demonstrate the mission. Thank you for reading it earlier. I won't need to read it for you all, but it's there. As a parent, I celebrate this mission. I look forward to seeing my students feel empowered as they thrive through educational excellence with opportunity to take ethnic studies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see, next we have Wendy Martinez. Welcome. Yes, former board member.
I'm so sorry. This is when I have to come back. Grateful. But I am Wendy Martinez. I currently have 3 little sisters in the district. I have a bunch of pseudo siblings at Cordova High School who I love and adore. And I am a former board member of this district. So of course I had to come back and really, really encourage you guys to put ethnic studies at the forefront of what we are discussing. I had a whole speech prepared and then I threw it out the window because that's not important anymore. What is important is what I have to say now, and that is talking about what is the heart of ethnic studies. And I define that in 2 words: opportunity and success. I was here in FCUSD from kindergarten as a first-generation student who spoke absolutely no English with parents who were immigrants from Mexico that are still yard workers and encouraging me. However, the curriculum did not encourage me. The curriculum constantly undermined me and showed me that the only thing that was available for me was the losing side. It constantly showed me that my voice was not as important as everyone else's. Now let me tell you, my voice is important, and so are all these students that are right here advocating with the passion that makes me explode. Because when I went to school, which wasn't that long ago, 2017, there was still so much going on. And if it wasn't for all the teachers at Cordova High School that told me, here is a Chicano literature book, here is the history of Cesar Chavez, here is Dolores Huerta, if it wasn't for them explaining all of this to me, opening it up to me, I would have never majored in ethnic studies, and I would have never been at law school where I am right now. So all of these students have power, and I implore you, there are students who walk into Cordova High School thinking that that is where their educational journey is going to end. They think that I have a high school degree, now let me go do what is expected of me. It is not. They have this opportunity to realize that they are made for more than what these words say, and the opportunity to write the words. They should no longer have to be looking at words that they make them feel inferior because they might not understand them. Trust me, it took me years to understand a single word that Shakespeare had to say. But the moment that I walked into ethnic studies class, I felt like I was the smartest person in the room. The students deserve to feel like that. They deserve to know that they have an opportunity to succeed and go further and advocate. I mean, look right now, we don't have an ethnic studies program, and yet you have powerful voices that are imploring you to hear them. So I ask, please listen to them. Please give them the opportunity to succeed. I have never been prouder to be an alumni of this district than I am listening to all these students. And I hope you guys continue to advocate and please implement the system, which is incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you. And welcome back. Let's see. The next speaker is Danielle Jessup. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just here to express my support for ethnic studies. I just want to take the time to thank Carrie for all her presentations that she's gone around, because I know she's done tons of them, but I definitely thank her for taking her time. But in today's society, I think it's extremely important for all children to be taught the full American history and not just the watered down version of American history that's currently being taught. The full version of American history includes all the contributions that were made to society by minorities. It's important that students learn from a very early age to be culturally aware and to be mindful of the things that are considered offensive to minorities. It's also important for all students to know there are more minorities that have contributed to history other than the same ones they are taught about every year. Example, Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez, and Rosa Parks. The board should approve ethnic studies as a requirement to help prepare our students for all the different ethnic groups they may encounter throughout their lifespan. This will help our students become smarter and more kinder human beings. This class should be taught in elementary school, middle school, and in high school, gradually increasing the intensity of the information provided to the students based on what is deemed appropriate for their age level. The world is full of different people with so many differences, and students should be taught to embrace and highlight those differences. It is important to make sure the focus of ethnic studies is to address those oppressed groups in this country that have been continually oppressed inside and outside the United States, without trying to fill it with history that's already being taught in the United States history. All that will do is cause ethnic studies to become more watered down. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Matthew Mellahor.
Good evening, board members. I first want to thank Ms. Jackson, obviously, the students and faculty at FCUSD who have made this program possible. From a personal level, I'm a Vista Del Lago student. I'm a junior, and this is my 11th year in the FCUSD district in my education. I've been through Goldridge Elementary, Folsom Middle School, and Vista Del Lago High School currently. And I want to highlight that each of these schools has a unique and defining campus culture that encompasses not only the educators, but the students themselves. Over the summer, Ms. Jackson presented Colin and I with the amazing opportunity to integrate ethnic studies into the curriculum at FCUSD. I was beyond enthusiastic. As a disconnected Filipino, I felt disconnected from the curriculum as a result. And just to reiterate, Colin, this August, we talked with various student-led organizations at Vista to include Asian Student Union, Black Student Union, Latinx Club, Muslim Student Organization, and various student-led organizations who had supported the integration of ethnic studies into the high school curriculum. Thus, it is important not only about the curriculum itself, but also the students. We must gather statistics by implementing this curriculum as soon as possible, and this data can be used for the future. The future can help present the curriculum for a better way for students and educators alike. Specifically to reiterate Superintendent Culligan, as well as Ms. Jackson, AB 101 mandates that ethnic studies must be implemented by the fall of 2025, so it is better to implement it now rather than later so we can gather these statistics once more. To be a student means to analyze different perspectives, constructing a multifaceted view of the world around them. Thus, ethnic studies offers such view, analyzing various cultures and histories across the world. Ethnic studies is not about just the analysis of different perspectives, but is also about the various facets of various cultures and histories throughout the world. To name a few: Asian Americans, Latino Americans, Latina Americans, Latinx Americans, Native Americans, African Americans, as well as many others. Moreover, it helps us discuss ethnics in a respectful and approachable manner. And it also brings awareness to common social stigmas or issues that may plague our community. As a Vista student, I was completely disturbed by the incident that had occurred at our school, and it basically exemplifies the need to integrate ethnic studies into our curriculum. Moreover, it offers a connection to an individual's personal heritage. Statistically, if a student is connected to their curriculum or academics on a personal level, they are more likely to attend their academics as well as be engaged with such studies. Finally, it helps us become more educated 21st century thinkers. And as educators, it is your job to ensure that the future generation of students are integrated into society and become good thinkers in this world. Thus, if you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at will change, exemplifying the need to integrate ethnic studies. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, I'm going to apologize on the last name, but I'll try. Vaisalia Narayan Swami. I'm sorry. Welcome.
My name is pronounced Vatsalya Narayan. Thank you for letting me be here in front of the board today, and thank you to Ms. Jackson for a great presentation on why we should implement ethnic studies. And thank you for Rocio and Ria for presenting me this opportunity, and I'm also part of the Student Advisory Board. As I stared at my textbook in my world cultures class, I saw that everything was Eurocentric or Anglocentric and misconstrued the true nature of society. In most cases, most high school students are offered to learn American or European history, and in both cases, it sugarcoats the true history of this country's past. Ethnic Studies is a course generally offered towards college students, and that is probably the first glimpse of true history, a history not whitewashed or downplayed to the extent of our high school social studies courses. The European and American history classes are great, and they provide a ton of useful knowledge, but they unfortunately aren't the truth, or they misinterpret minorities' involvement in society. As I was reading up on ethnic studies before I came here, I saw that mainstream media advanced the notion that ethnic studies is controversial, demanding that a single course that prioritizes people of color's histories and anti-racist pedagogy is not really radical, asking for school-wide detracking, for textbooks to be rewritten, or for equitable funding of feeder schools all would have been more complicated, though equally necessary demands. In response to an education system that has for centuries prioritized Eurocentricity, this ask of implementing ethnic studies in our curriculum is more than reasonable. Ethnic studies is more than a class, it's more than a community too. It is a pedagogy, it is advocacy, and its future lies in the deepening and widening of its scope. Anti-racist content and teaching methods should be introduced to all subject areas and not just a social studies class, but we should start from somewhere, even though it can be implemented in our foreign language classes, expanding language barriers, and it can also be implemented into science classes. But it should all start with one class and one change, and in my opinion, I think that change should start with ethnic studies. Folsom Cordova should follow in the footsteps of its neighboring districts in Fresno, LA, and many more in the Bay Area to help students graduate culturally aware. I feel that there is a huge barrier between what I have learned of my ancestry and what I learned at school, because Indian Americans have been misrepresented in society, and even if a paragraph is represented in the textbooks, I feel that it does not represent what we have gone through in society, and it does not represent what we have gone through globally and in the United States. And there should be more of a involvement to keep us in society, as well as many of the racialized minorities, to have a bigger part in how students learn about us and how students graduate understanding what we have gone through and what other racialized minorities have also gone through. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Shreya Ram.
Good evening, board members. My name is Shreya Ram, and I'm a sophomore at Folsom High School, and I'm here to show my support for ethnic studies. Providing students with a broader and culturally rich perspective on our history embalms inclusivity and diversity. Students cannot truly understand the United States until they learn about the struggles behind every minority and the contributions of the Native American, Hispanic, African American groups, Asian American groups, as well as other marginalized groups. California is a cultural melting pot, and when it doesn't reflect in our classes and teachings, that's where the problem arises. When vast diversity exists in our population, we need to rise to the same level and speak for those who couldn't. It helps students learn materials that give voices to other races, and it helps create communities of respect and understanding. When taught about a particular history, a sense of empathy and mutual respect is built between students in the classroom. Students in classrooms that are of different cultures could feel more comfortable and included in the conversation while not pushed to the sidelines of history or misinterpreting their community's role in the past. The class is also at its root an interesting and attention-grabbing class. Taking an ethnic studies class could help improve both grades and attendance because students would actually feel engaged and enjoy what they're learning. In today's society, racially discriminatory acts are becoming more prevalent by the day, and a class like ethnic studies has the power to imprint cultural sensitivity onto every one of its students. Having cultural sensitivity, especially at the school level, helps teach a future generation about understanding and empathizing with other people. Cultural sensitivity is being aware of that cultural differences and similarities between people actually exist, and ethnic studies would help with that. Ethnic studies could help endow cultural and racial sensitivity to every student. Public schools should support and inculcate imagination, cultivate curiosity and critical thinking, while also shaping young minds to grow up culturally aware without hiding behind a led-astray curriculum. I show my full support for the ethnic studies course and the implementation of it in our schools. And I'd also like to thank Ms. Jackson for her amazing presentation about ethnic studies. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. The final speaker, or at least the final card I have, is Claire Jensen. Welcome.
My name is Claire Jensen, and I'm a student at Vista Del Lago. I'm here tonight to show my support for the implementation of ethnic studies. I feel that this course would nourish a culture of tolerance and respect, as well as empower marginalized students in our community, which is something that we desperately need, especially after the recent events that have occurred at Vista Del Lago, as well as I've witnessed marginalized students experience microaggressions as well as just blatant racism, especially at Vista Del Lago. So I think that this course would definitely be effective at decreasing that. Thank you.
Do you have anybody online?
Yes, the first speaker is screen name Mojo.
Screen name Mojo. Welcome.
Hi, sorry. My name is Monique Jones, actually, and I have two small kids that are in the Folsom Cordova district. I actually first just want to give a lot of credit to the very well-spoken students that have spoken tonight. That is a testament to our district and something, a reason why my kids attend this district, because we have great education and the diversity and the thoughts and the just amazing speakers. So just hats off to you students. I think you guys are amazing, and thank you for all coming forward just to speak on this issue. I think one of the most important things to remember is this is not kind of up for debate. As someone mentioned earlier, it is already a mandate. It's something that's going to happen. And as Board Member Clark mentioned earlier, we're behind. We are not ahead. We're not in the forefront. We are behind. That's something as a parent I'm not very happy about, that all of these students unfortunately can't take this course in high school and have had to seek all of this information and knowledge from one another and on their own. And so I sincerely hope that for my middle school and elementary school student, that this will be implemented sooner than later, whereas basically now, so that they would be able to take advantage of this when they get older, as well as their classmates and everybody else within the district, so that we can catch up to literally all of the other school districts that are surrounding us. It will help a lot with us learning how to pronounce one another's names, to have the empathy and knowledge and respect to be able to separate what's already being taught in our curriculum about what's happened in our country and marginalized things, to not encourage a contest of sorts among marginalized peoples, but for everyone to understand that our country in general was built on a lot of different things that are not accurately represented in our history books. And so therefore, this is a gap in order to provide accurate education so that we can all become amazingly informed adults and empathetic people as a country and as a district moving forward. So thank you very much. And also amazing presentation, Ms. Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
She's had her thumb up. I'm not sure if that she's intending to have her hand up, but Dora?
Dora? Welcome.
There she is. Dora, are you there?
Maybe she was just giving a high, like a high five.
How about it? She's not unmuting.
Okay. Oh, we can come back to her if she wants to speak.
Hello, can you hear
there
me?
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. I'm a grandmother and I've lived in the area over 20 years. So therefore I have grandkids that are in the school district. I'm retired and I have given a lot of volunteer hours in my elementary school age grandchildren. And I've noticed, and it saddens me that as a Black woman, I don't see a lot of diversity in the teaching. One experience that I had that I will share in a first grade class of a grandchild, the paintings that they do, I asked the facilitator, the teacher, if I could have some brown paint. My granddaughter wanted to paint a picture showing her color, and the teacher had not thought of it, and she apologized for not thinking about adding different colors for kids of different colors that they can use. This is just very small, but it makes an impact on our children. Just a little thing like that. I do strongly stand behind getting that diversity training and classes into these classes as soon as you can. Elementary school is not soon enough. High school, you're late, but something is better than nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
We have Patrice.
Patrice, welcome.
Hello. I'm here to speak on behalf of an African-American family living in Folsom for at least the past 15 years. My son does not have any role models at Folsom to look up to that look like him. Also, if ethnic studies is a requirement at Sacramento State, which I'm a 2017 graduate of, why wouldn't or shouldn't we teach our kids this in the lower grades so when they get to Sac State, they'll be more than ready? And if y'all haven't heard how these kids are addressing this issue, you need to get your hearing aids because they are speaking loud and clearly. They want ethnic studies to combat some of the warped thinking that we are experiencing in recent days. Thank you.
Thank you. No more? All right, back to the board. This is just for discussion, just for clarification, Superintendent. When would this be coming back to the board for action?
We're planning for it to come back on December 15th.
Okay.
That way it gives our team time to get it into the registration process after the winter holiday.
Okay, thank you. All right, final board comments before next item. Again, we're not voting on it, so. All right.
I have a comment.
Yes.
So I just want to say that discussions about discrimination against Irish individuals are a part of the U.S. history curriculum. I learned about it in my junior year. And I also want to emphasize that supplementing curriculum about the Palestinian people and their liberation is essential. I also just want to, again, thank all the community members that came out tonight to speak on ethnic studies. Your voice is so important, and I'm so glad that we have so much support because racism is all too prevalent in our district. And microaggressions are violence, racial slurs are violence, and they are threats not only to individuals, but to the inclusivity of our entire school community, which is a severe and dire concern. So they are weapons. And I want to say that now is not the time to debate semantics about ethnic studies. As Ms. Jackson said, this curriculum has been reviewed by parents, students, faculty, and scholarly experts. Right now, students need a commitment from the district to stand wholeheartedly against racism without question. And we see this all too often on the board where we don't make decisive decisions about policy and we blame it on semantics. We cannot delay this decision any longer. Now is the time for action, and I expect that we will take that action at our next board meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Any others?
Yeah, I'll make a comment tonight. I'm sure there will be more to come when this comes back to us on the 15th. Again, I want to thank Ms. Jackson. I was thinking that whenever you hold your own ethnic studies course, let me know. I'd love to come attend. Really enjoyed everything you shared tonight, so appreciate your time and effort you've put into this and your team. The only thing I'll say tonight is at home I have 4 kids, ages 13 to 17. 2 are Latino, 2 are white. I mean, I've seen the difference that having a Latino teacher has on my Latino kids myself. I can only imagine what a course like this would mean to him. So I would be thrilled for him to be able to sit through this class, to be empowered, as you said, through that. As a parent, that would mean an incredible amount to me. I want to also say I would be, I don't know if I'd say equally, but I would be excited to have my white students sit through this class as well. To learn about other cultures, to learn about other people. I think that's incredibly important for them as they go through this world. So when this does come back to us, I mean, I plan on giving it my full support. I appreciate all the work that's been put into it. Thank you for your time.
And I had Josh, your son, who was great.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson, thank you so much again for that presentation. As you guys know, that I am the first African-American and the only African-American on this board, and I've served this district the best way I can. And my main focus has always been to build relationship with other ethnic groups. And I think I've done a good job with that, especially our Hindu community and our Latino and Latinx and our Native American. That's always been my goal. It's also been my goal to visit classrooms so students can see someone like me. For an African-American student to see that there is somebody on this governing board like them. I try to be that role model. What's important here is that we have students talk about their support for this ethnic studies, and there's no secret, I support it. I just, again, think that we're years behind, especially in a district where we speak 73 different languages. Think about that, 73 different languages, and we can't get anything for ethnic studies in this district until now. So, moving forward, I just want to challenge this board because I've heard different scenarios of different ways that we can add different groups in, and it's kind of taken the focus away on the groups that was in this presentation. My challenge to this board, and actually this is what I want to do. I want to challenge this board. The students that are of color are minority students, the ones who spoke. Could you stand up, including our student board members? Please stand. This is my challenge to the board. Just for one day, put yourself in their shoes. That's all I'm asking. When we bring this back December 15th, I want you guys to think about it. These students are wanting this. They want to learn about their culture, not what is written right now, not what is forced upon them, but they want to learn about their culture. They want to learn about other cultures. Just like me, I wish, my God, I wish many, many, many years ago that I would have had the opportunity to learn about different cultures, about more in detail about the slave trade, not the great worker migration, but the slave trade. So my challenge to this board is listen to these students, put yourself in their shoes, and support this. Thank you.
Short?
I also want to thank Ms. Jackson. That was a really great presentation, and I want to thank you for everything you've been doing. And I just want to kind of piggyback what Chris Clark is saying. You know, when I grew up in the Valley, in the Central Valley, with my mother teaching migrant education and multicultural education, I did a lot of house calls with her, and to see the immigrants and the migrants couldn't even speak English, that couldn't even go to school. She spent the time trying to help those people and to bring them to school to get them engaged. Like I was saying earlier, the 6 points. The immigrant and non-white students become more motivated and engaged when they feel valued, when they can see the different cultures and education that they have. It does great for those kids to come back and realize they feel valued. They feel like they're part of something greater. And it's so important that we make that sure that every kid here in our school, in our district, feel like they're valued and feel like they're going to be part of something, that they can be proud of their culture, where they come from. My mother always said, you cannot forget where you come from. You always need to appreciate everybody's culture and then integrate that and celebrate all our differences, because our differences is what makes us the best we are. Our diversity is our strength. And so by doing that, we can bring the equity in education. Our teachers and everybody else will understand it better. We treat each other and be kind to each other, and we can grow stronger as a future for all of us. And I just want to say that, and I would support this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hoover?
Thank you. So first off, I just want to commend the district for creating this elective and really trying to get out in front of this. And by that, I mean, that's not to actually, to Mr. Clark's point, we're not out in front of it in general, but in terms of, the state requirement, I think it is absolutely the right decision to make sure that we adopt this course and figure it out as an elective prior to it becoming a graduation requirement. And so I definitely want to commend our district for putting this forward at this time. I also want to just, as a parting comment, since I won't be here next time, I've brought this up in prior meetings, but I want to have a real conversation about the term Latinx. This is a term that every single poll, and again, I've been through the outline, I read through the entire outline. This term is used multiple times in every single poll of Hispanic and Latino Americans that is taken. 2 to 3% of Hispanic and Latino Americans use this term. And there was actually a more recent poll that was done that it was more specific to the voting population, but it found that 40% of Hispanic and Latino voters are actually offended by the term. And so, I want to continue to question why our district continues to use a term that nearly half of the Hispanic and Latino voting population is actually offended by. And I want that to be kind of an ongoing discussion, hopefully within some of the more internal meetings going on, because if we're trying to develop understanding, I think the use of this term is actually going to do the opposite. And so I would encourage our district to move away from the term Latinx and to continue to use the term that the vast majority of Hispanic and Latino Americans use. So I will just leave that there. But moving back to ethnic studies in general, there's no doubt that ethnic studies can be a profoundly positive experience for our students that provides greater understanding, that fosters unity, and that shines a light on the experiences of our students. And I was really grateful to the students that shared your stories tonight for sharing your experiences. There's no doubt that this is needed in our world more than ever today to combat the racism that honestly exists around the entire world. But I just want to be clear, and it kind of underlines why we need to be thoughtful about this process. Ethnic studies can also be taught in an incredibly divisive way, which is why I think there were curricula that were actually discussed in this district that were actually rejected because they were too divisive. And I'm thankful that took place, and I'm thankful that conversation was had, and I hope that continues to happen. But what I want to point out is that, no one here, I don't think, is suggesting that we delay action on adopting something. But I think what some of us are trying to say is that we need to go about this in the most thoughtful way possible. And so I would just suggest, and again, I won't be here in the future, but as this board continues to have this discussion, I just encourage this board to have a thoughtful and engaging process where there's open dialogue and discussion, and that is encouraged. Because honestly, this discussion that we're having tonight is exactly what creates the type of understanding that we seek. You know, sometimes it's going to be disagreement or so forth, but this is how we develop understanding. And I really do appreciate the work that is being done to make this happen. And I just urge just ongoing thoughtfulness as we continue in this discussion as a district. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would also, would suggest to the public, I don't think there's a single member on this board that is not supportive of this. This is the first time it's been brought to us, and I think at the next meeting, we'll have a unanimous vote in favor of it. So there is something that, when I'm looking at the ethnic studies, I guess it's the second semester outline, I really would like to see us add a category for anti-Semitism as something that we're doing as a district, something that we as a district feel is important. Over 6 million Jewish people were exterminated during World War II. If anything deserves some additional recognition, it's the plight of the Jewish community and the anti-Semitism that is rampant in this country and rampant in our district. The number one, at least from my observation, one of the number one symbols when we have graffiti at our schools is the Nazi swastika. How can we say that the Jewish population hasn't been oppressed, hasn't been marginalized? With the fact that, we often are painting over swastikas that have been spray painted on our walls. So, I truly believe the individuals who developed the state curriculum did a great job. But you know what? FCUSD can do a better job. And I'd like to see, when this board approves this, that we have a column for anti-Semitism and that we teach that, because we desperately need that. Those are my comments. So let's move on to that finishes discussion. So let's move on to the superintendent's report, item 14.
Thank you, President Reed. And I too want to acknowledge our students in speaking from the heart, speaking from personal experiences, speaking very deeply about the importance of understanding and building relationships and inclusivity, and seeing their culture and background and histories represented within our classrooms, within our staff, within the curriculum that they're presented. And that really has been an overarching goal in our board policy on equity. And I believe that, this is a next step in operationalizing that board policy in our classrooms and making this opportunity available. And I also commend Carrie and our team of teachers who have been very thoughtful and very mindful of this review and looking at the framework, the course outlines, and the curriculum. And I'm appreciative of the fact that we have time, again, to make adjustments and have time for our teachers and our students to experience this new course elective that will be offered to them, and to hear from, again, how we can make those adjustments to make it even better, as Mr. Reed just mentioned. This will give us the opportunity to do that. So again, my heartfelt gratitude to all that have been part of this, and as we go forward with it, this is exciting. I also want to acknowledge, in the spirit of acknowledging the many cultures and histories within our district, that November is also the months that we recognize California Sikh American Awareness and Appreciation Month, and American Indian and Alaskan Native Heritage Month. And just recently in my mailbox, I received honoring Folsom's Indigenous peoples. And I just wanted to read a little blurb out of this. And it's also archived in our local museum at the Folsom History Museum. In this edition, it says, November marks the beginning of Indigenous Peoples Month. In honor of this month, it's a great idea to acknowledge the history of Native American tribes in Folsom. The Nisenan and Southern Maidu people historically lived in the Sacramento area. This name may sound familiar to many of us because of the Nisenan Community Park on Gulf Links Road, and aptly named in honor of the tribe native to Folsom. You can also see evidence of Native American life everywhere around Folsom. For instance, when the water levels of Folsom Lake are low, grinding holes made from granite are seen, which were used by Native Americans to grind food products such as acorns. So you can learn more about this at the museum, but the last sentence in this article says, next time you bike along the Folsom Lake or take a walk with your family, think of the indigenous people who inhabited the area long before we settled these lands here. So I think that's a really good reminder of why we call attention to those that represent our communities are currently and in the past. And again, I appreciate students and staff and parents and community coming forward tonight. And I also want to thank our student board members for their leadership. What they didn't say about the Civic Learning Summit, that they represented all of the high schools in Sacramento area very well, is that 11 student advisory board members also joined them at the summit. And I can tell you that folks at Sacramento County Office of Education are highly impressed with the level of leadership that's happening with our student leaders in Folsom, Cordova. So thank you to Rhea and Rocio. Thanks.
All right, let's see, board member reports. Let's start with the student board members. Student board member Perez.
All right, some food for thought. The term Latinx encompasses those who within Latin America and Hispanic cultures have been marginalized and put down by rigorous gender binaries, machismo, and colonization. Latinx pushes beyond gender binaries and acknowledges the intersecting identities of our incredibly diverse community. It serves as a term for those of Latin American descent who do not identify as male or female, or who simply just do not want to be identified by gender. Now for my board member report. In honor of the holiday season, I want to take a moment and give gratitude to Dr. Peace, Dr. Kaligian, Rhea, the cabinet, and everyone who has supported our position as student board members this year. It's been a pleasure to serve on the board and have the position to collaborate with and gather students that have mustered up the courage to speak on their personal connections that I know is extremely challenging to do. Thank you to all my peers, students, and former board member Wendy Martinez that came out today. I hope you all have a revitalizing and loving Thanksgiving break. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, board member Srivastava.
Thank you. I just want to echo Board Member Perez's comments about Latinx identities. And also, I had the opportunity to visit Mills Middle School, Carl Sundell Elementary, and Sutter Middle School alongside Board Member Clark these past 2 weeks. And I also got to do a presentation to the Sutter Middle School leadership class on youth advocacy and leadership and what it means to be civically engaged. And it was so great to meet so many students and have essential conversations on what issues are on their minds and how we can better support them. Students mentioned concerns like menstrual products in bathrooms, their school lunch quality, a lack of gender-neutral bathrooms, dress code, and much more. And this November, I just want to say that I'm really grateful for students who always show up and advocate. And I hope everyone has a fun and safe November break. Thanks.
Thank you. Board member Hui.
Thank you. Just a few comments. One, I did want to thank our counselors. Fortunately, they're not still here for their words earlier today. Like Board President mentioned, I think it's a great idea for them to be coming to us. I realize we probably understand just a tiny bit of the work that they do every day. I know I work on a middle school campus, and our two counselors are invaluable. I don't think the school would run without them. So a chance for us to hear a little bit about how our counselors operate, I think is fantastic. I want to acknowledge our students who participated in the District Safety Committee meeting last week. Thanks for your leadership on that. We did have kind of a fishbowl experience, and we had students that are here that spoke very openly, vulnerably, and were incredible in that. So just want to thank them for taking that courageous step, being open in front of parents and district staff. It was really helpful for us. Last, big congratulations to the Vista Del Lago boys and girls cross country teams. Big shout out. They both won the Cal League, and last week they both made it into the state finals, which will happen the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So good luck to them as they're running, representing our district in Vista Del Lago.
Hey.
Board Member Short.
Since you're talking about Latinx, I think a lot of people don't know Latin goes all the way down to the tip of South America. So not all Latins, Latinos or Latinx speak from those origins, speak even Spanish. Chicano, I'm probably, and going what Mr. Clark is, I'm probably the longest standing board member is Chicano. I relate to Chicano because my mother was first generation from Mexico, from Puebla. And so I'm Chicano. I relate to that when I was growing up in the Central Valley. Latino or Latina also is a Hispanic, and all different definitions from different origins of the world. So Latinx, I think, is a more different definition for what we're talking about in the current issues. So I think just people just don't really understand some of the definitions. So I'm the longest standing Chicano, I guess, on this board, and I'm proud of that for 20 years. So I want to thank everybody for doing that, and great for all you showing up, and have a good holidays.
Thank you. Board Member Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. I truly enjoyed my visits with our student board members at Carl Sundahl, Mitchell Middle School, Kenny Prospect, but I want to give kudos to our student board members because you guys were so engaged with the students, with the teachers, and taking time out to really take in what the students are talking about and engaging with them, and also helping them and telling them that, hey, you can be a student board member too. And, kids are asking questions, well, how can I do that? How can I get involved? And you guys are just spot on with answering those questions and engaging. So I appreciate you. Anytime I go on a visit tomorrow, you're more than welcome to come with me and hang out. I love to have the company. I want to say congratulations to Folsom High's Visual and Performing Arts program. As you guys know, I'm real big on that, next to sports, and they did a production of Footloose, which was phenomenal. And it just so happened that when I went, one of the lead characters were out, but they went on with the show, and they improvised, and it was amazing. So kudos to Folsom's program. I think they have shows this weekend. If you have an opportunity, go out and catch it. Before I make my last comment, I wanted to touch on the district's transparency as far as what was written at Vista and the gun on campus at Cordova. And I just want to make sure that we get those messages out to the community. And if I am correct, and Superintendent, correct me if I'm wrong, did we not get a message out to the Cordova community about the incident at Cordova?
Yes, to the Cordova community. Okay,
I just want to make sure that we are transparent and that we get that information out so the community is aware. In my closing comment, last Thursday I was honored at Riverview STEM for Veterans Day. And I want to just tell the staff at Riverview STEM how grateful I was. I received Veteran Day cards from each and every student. and I mean from kindergarten all the way up. And it just touched my heart that those kids took the time out to write that for me. So Troy Martinez and Lori Powell, if you're listening, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm almost done going through these letters. And as soon as I am, I'll draft up a thank you letter for the whole school and pay a visit and hang out with you guys. With that being said, I do plan on visiting schools tomorrow, Blanche Springs, Gallardo, and I was invited by a teacher to hang out at Williamson, so I will be there tomorrow as well. And that's it.
Board Member Hoover.
Thank you. We'll just have to, Latinos will continue to disagree on Latinx for a long time, I'm sure. So this will be fun. But I really do appreciate the discussion, and I really appreciate your guys' willingness for always being a part of the discussion, because it's just so important to have your voice here, regardless of whether we agree or disagree on different issues. Your voice is just so incredibly valued, and I really appreciate it all the time. I really appreciate the words tonight. I was gonna bring my list of 50 things I'd like on the next agenda, but I decided that I would skip it tonight. But I do want to just say a few quick thank yous, first and foremost to Dr. Collegian, just for your incredible leadership over these past few years. It has been incredibly, I'm sure, a challenging portion of your career, and you have led with strength and dignity, and I just greatly appreciate being able to work for you for these last few years, with you for these last few years. Thank you to Betty Jo, who I got to serve with on the special education committee before serving on this board, for just all you continue to do for our special education students. I can't talk about everybody all night, but Jim and Dawn and Sean and Martha and Rochelle and Matt and Angela, for just all of your work over these last few years, all of your advice, keeping us kind of in check and letting us know when we have no clue what we're talking about, and just really providing the expertise that we need as a board to succeed, and to really understand the problems that our district is facing. Thank you to Chili and Samuel for always keeping things running, including, implementing this amazing live stream that we now have permanently, which I'm so thankful for, because we provide so much more access and transparency to the public because of the work that Chili and Samuel do. So thank you to them. There's a million other people I could thank. Thank you to all my children's teachers who've had to put up with my kids over the years. And really, most importantly, thank you to my family for really hanging in there these last few years as we've gone through some really challenging times as a family. Both my wife, Nicole, and my kids. It's just, I can't say enough how grateful I am for their support as well. I have appreciated my time, and best of luck moving forward into the future.
Thank you. All right. For myself, on my report, I actually went to see Footloose as well. I went to the show after your show.
Oh.
So you were there on what, Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah, and I was there on Friday. And we had heard of what happened on Thursday. The lead that played Ren was very ill and was not able to attend. And there was, unlike television in Hollywood, there was no understudy. So they did all the music, I understand, on Thursday, but some of the dialogue was missing. Interesting story was apparently in the audience that night on Thursday was a student who had the role of Ren in another school district. And after the performance ended, he went up and said, I last year played Ren. If you'd like, I'd be happy to step in until your student is able to perform. And so they gratefully took him up on his offer. And he showed up at, I think they said 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because, and this is something I didn't realize, when we put on performances, the dialogue and the music doesn't change, but the choreography does. I never knew that. I always thought the choreography was always the same, no matter what high school put it on. But actually, the choreography is done by the students. And so even though Ren, or this, apologize, don't remember his name, but even though he had performed Ren in another school district, he didn't know the choreography. So they ran him through the choreography for like 5 hours, and then he went on stage and did it. And you wouldn't have known. It was, the entire performance was incredible. But all of our schools do such incredible performances in our performing arts, and both the musicals as well as the non-musicals. And I can't forget our instruments too, our music department. So anyway, what I have been doing over the last several meetings, I've been talking about the boy crisis in our schools. And I had, at the last meeting, I had spoken 3 meetings in a row off of a magazine, or actually a newspaper article. This time I'm going to read from a magazine. It's just a paragraph. But it reads, by almost every benchmark, boys across the nation in every demographic group are falling behind. In elementary school, boys are 2 times more likely than girls to be diagnosed with learning disabilities and twice as likely to be placed in special education classes. High school boys are losing ground to girls on standardized writing tests. The number of boys who said they didn't like school rose 71% between 1980 and 2001. According to a University of Michigan study, nowhere is the shift more evident than on college campuses. 30 years ago, men represented 58% of the undergraduate student body. Now they are a minority at 44%. This widening achievement gap, says Margaret Spellings, U.S. Secretary of Education, has profound implications for the economy, society, families, and democracy. So, you might have noticed something a little odd there. First of all, why is he quoting statistics from between 1980 and 2001? And doesn't he know that Margaret Spellings hasn't been the U.S. Secretary of Education for over 15 years? Well, the article that I just read from was in a Newsweek dated January 30th, 2006. And the headline is The Boy Crisis. So this crisis that I've been talking about this is the 4th meeting, is real. It's all around us. It's in our schools. We need to do something about it for our society, for our country. And I'm going to continue to read other excerpts in coming meetings. Let's see. Let's move on to the next agenda item, which is, did I put it? There we are. Advanced planning. So that's item 16. Our next board meeting is on December 15th, 2022. You have the 12-month calendar there for your reference. And then we have the suggested future agenda items. I know there's a couple that are coming up in December, so they'll come off of our list. Are there any suggestions from board members for additional items for future board meetings? No? All right, the only question, and I don't know if it's really an agenda item, but maybe a suggestion, Superintendent. Under reports of district organizations, might we consider adding to that list, and we add counseling? They've indicated an interest in coming at multiple meetings. We could rotate between our academic counselors and our mental health counselors, where they could provide a potential report. maybe we can discuss that in our January planning meeting. That might be a good place to have that conversation, to talk about the pros and cons. And maybe in the meantime, maybe you could inquire with your staff if that would even make any sense. But if we have an interest by our counseling department to come and provide presentations, it would be nice if we had an established place on the agenda for them to do so. And reports of district organizations might be an appropriate place to consider it. So, all right, let's see. That takes us to, we finished all of our business in closed session, so we do not need to go back to closed session. So that takes us to adjournment. So if there is no objection, we will adjourn the meeting by unanimous consent. Hearing none, we are adjourned.